Welcome everyone to our council meeting for Monday, September 17th, 2018. Prior to commencing with the council meeting agenda, I would ask that anyone in attendance this evening please sign the attendance sheet to my right, your left. Also, I would ask that all cell phones, pagers, and/or PDAs to be turned off. And I would note that this meeting is being audio and video recorded for your viewing pleasure at home. Would you please all stand for the singing of O Canada and remain standing for the opening petition by Councillor Rayner. Thank you. Councillor Bosma. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard. Councillor Rayner, please.
We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faith give us strength to act honestly and well in all manners before us. Amen.
Well, welcome everyone. Please be seated. Are there any changes in the order of items on tonight's agenda? Councillors? Madam Clerk? Seeing none. Also, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest from any members of council? And I see none to that as well, Madam Clerk. Are there any members of the public present who wish to address a specific item on the agenda as permitted by section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw? Please come forward. Give us your name, give us your address.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Vita from Upper Canada Consultants, and if I could take 5 minutes of your time just to do a quick presentation on an application that's before you this evening for Spring Creek Manor.
How you make a note there?
Do you want me to start and go through the presentation? Unfortunately, it didn't get downloaded to the laptop.
Okay. Okay.
But there are some visuals that we would like to share with you tonight. So good evening, members of committee and the public. My name is Jennifer Vita from Upper Canada Consultants, and the address is 30 Hanover Drive in St. Catharines. I'm a registered professional planner, and I'm here tonight on behalf of RVL Contracting. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening with regards to the applications for official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of vacant land condominium for Spring Creek Manor. Many of you may remember we were here earlier this year for a public meeting to present applications to develop the lands at the corner of Spring Creek and 30 Road. We received feedback from council on the proposal and have spent the last few months working towards addressing the comments to improve the proposal. Recognizing that the property is an important focal point when entering the town along 30 Road, RBL Homes has been working with Nada Homes to improve the streetscape of the development. Enhanced building facades along 30 Road, Spring Creek, by including building articulation, the use of a variety of high-quality building materials, larger windows, and the additional landscaping along with a wrought iron fence along the entire perimeter. An internal sidewalk connection has been added as well, providing for pedestrian linkages from the property to the public realm and the public sidewalk. Proposed enhancements will serve to provide an attractive and welcoming streetscape and act as a high-quality gateway for the town. In terms of planning policies, the lands have been part of the defined urban boundary in Smithville since 1975. Provincial plans encourage a mix of housing types throughout the urban boundary. This plan provides a mix of 1- and 2-story townhouse condo units. I'm just going to open it to the visuals that have been provided. So you can see on the screen there's a rendering of what it will look like from Spring Creek as well as 30 Road to give you an idea of what the streetscape will look like ultimately. So back to my presentation, the provincial plans mandate higher density developments within the urban boundary to ensure that available land and municipal infrastructure is being used efficiently, lessening the burden to expand urban boundaries. The proposed development is an example of the type of high-quality, compact urban development that is encouraged by all applicable planning policies. Based on my professional planning opinion, the revised plan is considered good land use planning and will provide for an attractive gateway to the town. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
We also have a very brief video, if you'll indulge us and let us walk you through.
I think you're still under your 5 minutes. If you can get it going, let's see it. Councilor Bell, could you hit the lights for us, please? Thank you. Is it a slideshow or is it like a 3D? Going north.
This is, yes, going north, yeah.
That's
all?
it?
Yes.
I like it.
Thank you.
Jennifer, can the clerk get a copy of your notes too as well? Okay. Okay, is there anybody else in the gallery who would like to come forward and speak on anything on tonight's agenda? Total of 5 minutes is allowed. Yes, come forward, please. Name and address.
Hello, my name's Michelle McMahon. I live at 8288 Silver Street in Caister Center.
Okay,
I'd
thank
like
you.
to speak on the site alteration permit that's before you tonight.
Okay.
Do you want me to do it now, or do we wait till that
No,
discussion
do it now,
is up?
please, ma'am.
Okay. I'm very happy with, I wasn't able to be here for the August meeting. My husband attended, and since I've received all the reports on Friday that were made available. So I'm very, very pleased with all the reports that have been done. I do have a few minute concerns about some of those studies and how far maybe they could still go when we're talking about our property. I wish I wish Velco all the luck in the world with his project. I don't want it to stop him in any way. What I'm trying to do is protect our property and the potential that this alteration may have for specifically our wetlands. We're very concerned about the environment. We love the fact that we're a part of the biosphere and we want to protect them. We also have a pond that's on the west side of the property to Mr. Velko, and that the plans that I've seen where the dirt is going to be accumulating is close to where our pond is. The other thing that has not been addressed that I would like the MPCA to come and speak to is that we do have a well that is our primary source of water for our home. So if there could be further studies done to the effect that might happen to our well water, we do not have a cistern at all. That is our primary source of water is a 90-foot dug well.
Have you contacted them yourself, the MPCA, by chance, to come out and have a look?
They've been out to our property before
Okay.
because we wanted them to look at our wetlands.
I thought so.
How we could care for them,
Yeah.
you know, and how we could maintain them. It's important to us. So, but reading the reports that were available in August and then these newest, I mean, they're saying everything's fine.
Yeah.
And we understand that a silt fence is going to be made. We understand, you know, about the grading, and we appreciate, because in my original letter in August, I had asked for a civil engineer to come and look at the lay of the land and how that was going to sit. My husband and I have walked the property. We are aware of our property. We know where that ditch lies on the west side. It's generous to say at some points it's 1.2 meters in depth, and some places at 1.65 meters in depth, but we're not sure, is that accurately going to hold the possible runoff of water? I'm not sure. So I guess I'm just looking for every avenue to be met so that we're feeling secure about the wetlands. So and I know it says directly in the letter, because in my original letter, I asked for NPCA to come out and actually walk the property with us. We'd still like that to happen. I can contact them myself if you think that's the best route to go. So I guess, and my last thing is that talking down the road, so, because everything does look fairly good to us. Like, we're not trying to make a big deal, except from our concerns. What is the repercussions 5 years down the road? We're not going anywhere. Pacer Center is our home. We have children that would like to live there at some point. So I'd like to know if there's damages in the future, where's that going to come from? What repercussions do we have for damages that have occurred to our property because of this alteration?
Okay,
That's about all I have to say.
very good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Can we have a copy of your notes, please?
Sure.
If you could maybe just type them up tonight and send them to Ms. Shimei tomorrow, that would be.
I can do that.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Name and address, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Joyner. My name is Jared Marcus. I'm here from IBI Group. We're at 360 James Street North in Hamilton. I have a couple images as well I'd like to pull up.
Sure. Garrett, that's a snazzy tie you got tonight, Garrett. She's got good taste, Garrett.
Is it up there?
Good to go, Joanne? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Joyner. As I said, my name is Jared Marcus. I'm here from IBI Group on behalf of West Niagara Enterprises, who are the owners of the subject lands. And I'm here to speak to item PD 140-18. As you're likely aware, the subject lands to this report are part of the Old Town Gateway Estates or Smithville Station subdivision. I'm not going to go into a lot of history on that because you're all very aware of it, but I will say that after a very, 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 very long time, that was registered in August, and construction on that development is imminent. So our subject lands are what's outlined in red on the image here. It's known as Block 40 within that plan of subdivision. And the report before you tonight deals with zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of vacant land condominium applications for those lands, and that will permit the construction of 63 residential units, 61 townhouses, and 2 semi-detached units. The report is recommending approval of those reports, of those applications rather. The zoning amendment application seeks to rezone the lands from a development D zone, which is essentially a future development or development holding zone, and we're seeking to rezone to a residential medium density or RM3 zone. We are not asking for any site-specific amendments to that zone. We have designed the development to adhere fully to the parent zoning bylaw. The vacant land condominium application, that's part of that, is going to create the freehold or the vacant land condominium units or lots within that, and a common element area that will hold the private road, sidewalks, parking, landscaping, etc. So that's the vacant land condominium portion. In addition to those two applications, we have an ongoing site plan application that's under review with town staff, and we're getting pretty close in that too. So we're confident once approvals happen here that we'd be ready to start development beginning of next year or end of this year. You might recall that the last time I was here for this development was this past April, and that was for the statutory public meeting for these two applications. At that public meeting, some members of the public, as well as a few members of the planning committee, raised some concerns in regards to the traffic and some pedestrian connection concerns in that development. In regards to the traffic concerns, they questioned whether the development had been reviewed as part of the Old Town subdivision, and whether the street network and intersection could handle that. So a traffic impact study was done out as part of the Old Town subdivision, and the findings from that were that the full stop intersection of Dennis Drive to St. Catherine Street could handle all of that traffic, which included the 63 units as part of this development. The pedestrian connectivity concerns that were raised centered around potential access points from our private street lane to the west and to the east here. We did look at it with Mr. Borma, and unfortunately the lands on the east and the west are not owned by either my client or the municipality. So at this time, adding pedestrian connections, it was not feasible due to adjacent landowners and it just not being our land. What I will say about pedestrian connectivity is that there is a sidewalk that will traverse the from each entrance through the development and connects to the broader municipal sidewalk network through Dennis Drive, and ultimately which connects to St. Catherine Street. And that really deals with the connectivity from our neighborhood and people coming to visit. In addition to those pedestrian facilities, one of the conditions of the vacant land condominium approval does require that my client provide a cash payment to the township, which will be added with the broader monies paid for by Mars Homes and another development on St. Catharines, and that will go to a fund which is earmarked for a pedestrian crossing on St. Catherine Street. I don't have any details on that actual crossing, but I would guess it would be similar to what was built at South Grimsby Road 5 and Regional Road 20. So some kind of pedestrian activated crossing or marking or otherwise.
We'll work in partnership with the region at that time. Thank you.
Yeah, so there will be something there. So those are my submissions to you tonight. We have read the report from staff. We are supportive of the findings, and we've read the draft plan conditions, and we're happy with how those were laid out. So all in all, we're happy with how this has been handled by staff, and we're supportive of the report and the work they've done. So
Okay.
if there are any questions when the report comes up, I'll be here to answer those questions.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the gallery who wishes to speak? Seeing none? Ms. Langley still thinks she's the clerk, yelling at me, no, 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 so we'll move on. We have an appointment this evening being Mr. Ted Barnes, who is a member of the Board of Directors of the Alzheimer Society of Niagara Foundation regarding their coffee break campaign, as well as providing updates regarding dementia. Mr. Barnes, would you like to come forward to the microphone? And there you are. State your name and address. And your occupation, because we may need a loan.
Sure. Well, I'm Ted Barnes. You know, I live on Broman Court in Castroville, and yes, I work for Meridian. Mayor Joyner, members of council, township staff, and members of the public. I am also a member of the board of directors for the Alzheimer Society of Niagara Foundation. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you this evening and share information about our annual coffee break campaign, now in its 23rd year. Originally the inspiration of the Niagara Alzheimer Society, Coffee Break is now the longest standing national annual fundraising event for Alzheimer societies across Canada. Thousands of coffee breaks are held each year and annually raises more than $1 million to support the work of local Alzheimer societies. National Coffee Break Day is Thursday, September 20th, that's this Thursday, and we anticipate that more than 10,000 coffee breaks will take place across the country that day. In the Niagara region, our campaign will kick off in St. Catharines at the Lake Street Meridian Credit Union with a lunch with this year's honorary chair, Wade Stazer, Senior Vice President and Chief Member Experience Officer for Meridian. From 12 noon to 2 p.m., Johnny Rocca's mobile pizza truck will be selling pizza with partial proceeds being donated back to the event, along with free ice cream samples from Marble Slab Creamery. That's worth the trip right there. And Tim Hortons coffee from the Riediger family. Alzheimer's disease, already the 7th leading cause of death in Canada, continues to grow as a public health concern as the number of Canadians with dementia rises. The latest statistics from Alzheimer's Canada indicate that as of today, there are over 500,000 Canadians living with dementia, plus about 25,000 new cases diagnosed every year. By 2031, that number is expected to rise to 937,000, an increase of 66%. The annual cost of care for those with dementia is currently estimated at $10.4 billion. Dementia doesn't discriminate. It can affect anyone regardless of background, education, lifestyle, or status. It is not a normal part of aging. It's one of the fastest growing diseases of our time and still has no cure or effective treatments. Dementia is also a health condition with important social implications that impacts our communities. There's often a lack of awareness and understanding of dementia, resulting in stigmatization and barriers to diagnosis and care. In the Niagara region, there are over 10,000 people experiencing a progressive dementia, and the number of cases continues to grow. Last year, we saw more than 1,900 new referrals to our society and educated more than 11,000 Niagara residents and frontline staff. With the diagnosis of dementia, an individual and their family most likely will have questions about what it means, what to do, who can help, both in the short term and in planning for the future. Our service provision includes all individuals impacted by the diagnosis of dementia, spouses, family, and friends who also need education and support to facilitate lifestyle, health, and wellness changes for their family member. The Alzheimer Society of Niagara Region is a recognized leader in the field of dementia care. Our vision is a community where individuals with dementia and their care partners are fully supported to maximize their quality of life and well-being. Working in partnership with those living with dementia, their care partners, and the broader community, we offer a range of specialized programs and services that provide information, education, support, and advocacy at every stage of the dementia journey. Our goal is to enhance safety and independence within the home and community, strengthen resilience and coping capacity, and ensure that people living with dementia continue to participate in family and community life for as long as possible. We offer people living with dementia a welcoming place where they can access information and support, as well as connect with others who share a similar experience. By accessing education, personalized in-home support services, and wellness programs, families can better understand dementia, navigate the health system, and access the resources they need when they need them. We've had tremendous success with our Brainwave cafes that are offered in 6 communities across the region. To support a large variety of programs, the majority of which focus on those with early stage dementia and are provided at no charge to our individuals and families, our society must fundraise approximately $500,000 each year, and Coffee Break is our signature event. Coffee breaks are an opportunity to invite your friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, clients, or customers to come together to enjoy a cup of coffee or other beverage, and even treats at a break time or another social get-together in exchange for making a donation to support the work of your local Alzheimer Society. Hosting a coffee break is easy to organize, provides a fun social opportunity. Our society supplies each host with a free kit, while hosts supply the people and the place. The kit includes coffee for that first pot, supplied locally by Barclay and Todd's, promotional signage and literature, as well as a donation box to support each event. While many of the Alzheimer coffee breaks in Canada will be held on the National Day, you can choose a date that is more convenient for you, since the Niagara campaign runs from September through to December. You may even consider organizing your event to coincide with World Alzheimer Day, which is September 21st. Coffee break events are held in homes, workplaces, community centers, schools, churches, city halls, stores, businesses, just about anywhere you can imagine a social gathering taking place, and where coffee, other beverages, or food and goodies can be served and a donation collected. Some of the most successful events have been a result of doing something a little different, whether it's a barbecue, an open house, raffle, dress-down days, maybe a pie-in-the-face event. I had one of those once. Selling coffee cups or forget-me-not decals, or rounding up your bill at the cash register. No coffee break event is too big or too small, and each one truly makes a difference in the lives of those living with the effects of dementia in the Niagara region. Thanks to this council and over 100 hosts, we raised close to $70,000 last year. Organizing or taking part in a coffee break event in your community not only raises much needed funds, but it can raise awareness and encourage discussion about Alzheimer's disease and dementia. You not only make all of the society's accomplishments possible, but you ensure that individuals and their families, your loved ones, friends, and neighbors know they are not alone in their journey. Consider hosting a coffee break event this year and, quote, make your coffee count. It's a fun and easy way to show your support for Alzheimer's Society. Anyone can register for a free coffee break kit by calling the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara, 905-687-3914, or by visiting the website at alzheimerniagara.ca. Thank you for the time this evening and your consideration in making a difference in your community and making memories matter. Mayor Joyner, may I present you with your host coffee break kit? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that, Mr. Barnes. I know you want to leave quickly too as well, but thanks for what you do. You do a lot for the Meridian Credit Union, and you also personally yourself get involved in a lot of different organizations such as Alzheimer's and Coffee Day, National Coffee Day. So thank you so much, and we will, the Township of West Lincoln will have a special day. I'm thinking we might even be able to incorporate our libraries too as well to have it there too on that day. Vanessa, what do you think of that? Good idea? Okay, so we'll have one here at the Township, and maybe we'll incorporate all three of our libraries too as well to have one. So thank you so much, and keep up the good work. Thank you. Thank you, Ted. Our second presentation this evening is to recognize the retirement of a long-term employee. She's in the crowd, Miss Carolyn Langley. You better get ready, Carolyn. Township Clerk, who has been an employee of the Township for over 30 years, 15 years of which she has served as the clerk. I personally didn't write a big speech for tonight because there was just too much to say. I just want everyone to know that Carolyn was a very dedicated employee to the Township of West Lincoln. She was otherwise known to us as Mama Bear, and everybody who knows a Mama Bear knows that they protect their cubs. That is one thing that Carolyn always did. She always made sure that she protect the staff, and she protect the CAO, she protect counselors, and she protected the mayor. But the number one thing I want you to know is that she protected the corporation of the Township of West Lincoln. So, Carolyn, I want to at this time present you with a certificate of recognition. So if you could come up front, we've got a few things for you actually, and I think they're actually really cool gifts. And if you could just stand up front there, that would be awesome. Boys, bring her in. If anybody knows Carolyn Langley Mouse knows that this is exactly what she wants. We could have presented her with a pitcher or a pen or a bicycle or something else, and she would have said, thank you very much. But this is something totally is Carolyn Langley Mouse. and she's all about family, right? So Carolyn, in appreciation of your 30 years of dedicated service presented by the Municipality of Township of West Lincoln, dated the 17th day of September, I want to present to you the certificate of recognition and wish you all the best on your retirement. Let's put our hands together for Miss Carolyn Langley Moose. And if there's any reporters, I'd like you to take a picture, please. And council, please, and Miss Hendry, let's go up and let's get around Carolyn and get a picture with one of our long-term standing. Family good?
Come on up here, Bob. I know how you love pictures.
Come on, Bob.
Come on, Bob.
Bob's been driving that tractor all day today. I saw him, Bob.
Get that house fixed up.
I saw him.
That's good. Your shirts are pretty well. Just gotta get it done. But don't take your shirts are pretty well. I think we step up to our family.
Where'd you go?
Getting your family together is hard.
So Carolyn, I know you're a lady of little words, but we do want you to come up here and just say a few words. We've got a little card here for you too as well. So would you grace us with just a few words, please?
I did write something out so I wouldn't forget, because it's very important. After 30 years, which is a very long time of being, so I wouldn't blow it, I wrote it out. So I will read this. All right, my own words.
Could you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah. Okay. You can't see, I don't want you to see me. I'm not a fan of these kind of things, but anyway. Oh, Lord. Okay, I'll try to make this fast because I know a lot of you, it's not part of your gig. But anyway, this is a very bittersweet moment for me. 30 years is a really long time in one place. I'm leaving with both apprehension and anticipation. It is quite a journey for me, without a doubt. The best part was the unexpected adoption of my work family. No one could have asked for a better group of people to work with, which is what makes leaving so difficult. I have to particularly thank the members of my team, who were the key players in every success I had. Everything we achieved together was due to all of them. Thank you so much, Joanne, who is here tonight and who is the clerk now, and I know she's going to do a great job. Barb, Jackie, and Trish were also part of my team, and I thank them. They were always a great support and comfort to me, and we had many laughs along the way, something I particularly valued when days were rough, especially on those bad agenda days. You have no idea how much I will miss them each and every day. I'm also thankful to have worked with a great senior management team. Thank you, Donna and Brian and Dennis, and Brent isn't here, and Vanessa. Your dedication and commitment to this organization is immeasurable. There are so many other township staff I could mention, but we would be here all day. So I would just like to say thank you to all the great staff in the Public Works Department, the Recreation Department, and the great team here in the main office. You all made my job more enjoyable and easier both during my time as acting CAO and as clerk. Now to our new CAO, Bev. The township is very fortunate to have you. I leave happily knowing that the organization is in excellent hands. My only regret is that we did not have longer to work together, as I know you would have taught me a lot because you already did in just these few short months. I was fortunate to have many great mentors throughout my career and cannot leave without making particular mention of several specific people who supported and taught me during my tenure in West Lincoln. I started as a receptionist, so. Salter Hayden, who was the clerk of the day, Rob Menz, Bill Young, Derek Thompson, Chris Carter, additionally Rod Bush, Tom Richardson, Sarah Premy, to name only a few. The last three were our legal counsel, and I work with them very closely. I've learned a lot from each of them during my journey as clerk and as acting CAO, and I thank them all for their guidance. Mayor Joyner and Councillor Bell and Councillor Bilesma and Councillor Gannon and Councillor Chichok and Councillor Trombetta and Councillor Rayner, I thank you for the opportunity to serve this great municipality, and I thank you for your confidence in me and your continued support. I have learned so much from each and every one of you. I also have to thank a former mayor, Katie Trombetta. She was the only other mayor I served under as a senior manager, and she was a very great support for me. Finally, I cannot conclude without thanking my husband, Bob, and our 5 children, two are here tonight, for their unwavering support over the years, as I could have never undertaken such a career without them. Members of council, I wish you every success in the upcoming election, and I thank you all so very, very much for this, and the lovely gift. Thank you so much. Thanks for everything.
Can you leave that for the clerk, please, to come? Wow, that was a tough one to get through. I'll get the Kleenexes out now. Again. Oh, yes. Members of council, would you like to have a comment? Members of council who would like to say something, please put your hand up. Councillor Bell?
I've only known Carolyn for a short time, and I can't count the many times that she kept me out of trouble here at the council table. She just had that knack of looking, and you knew not to say it. She really going to miss you. Really going to miss you. It was great working with you that short period, and you just taught me so much about council. And I remember when I first came in, you said, now you get to see the other side of the table. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. And you were right. I've learned so much. Thank you very much for all that. Appreciate it. Enjoy your retirement.
Councillor Bosma?
Yeah, without adding too much to what Councillor Bell has said, I felt the same reception when I came in as a councillor at the beginning of the term. She was kind of instantly a support network, and yeah, I asked a lot of stupid questions back then, and she answered them. She was very gracious. So thank you, and all the best in your retirement, Carolyn.
Thank you. Councillor Gannon?
Thank you. I felt badly when I came on board in 2016 because Carolyn had already been through all of the training sessions with everybody else who was new, and she had to, again, deal with me, brand new, halfway through a term. And I just can't thank you enough, Carolyn, for the help and the support and the encouragement that you've given me. I certainly needed it. I needed all the advice that you had to offer, and I just wish you the longest, happiest retirement that anybody could possibly have. You deserve it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Chichok?
Thank you very much. And if this is open mic, it's usually done at a place where we have much longer. And only Carolyn could put order to even a farewell where we are limited in our jurisdiction and the ribbings that we would give. Because, Carolyn, you have owned this council chamber for 30 years, well, for all the years that you've been the clerk. And you have managed it and kept us and the township out of trouble so many times, I can't even begin to count. You have, in a quiet and unpretentious way, provided us with everything we've needed to move this community forward. And with your guiding force, we have come here with the kind of staff we have, with your assistance in nurturing, but also sourcing those people, including our current CAO. So for that, this community owes you very, very much. Thank you. And for those times when you were in the acting roles of many, many parts of this community, I got to say, I don't know if there's an engineering drawing or a planning document that you haven't overseen in all the years that you've been here. Carolyn Langley, with the family of children, and we've all known you through St. Martin's and the growing your children here in this community. And the only good thing about us saying goodbye to you on a full-time basis here is we're never going to say goodbye to you, because I know you just took your house down off stilts. You've cemented your future into this community, and we will have you here for many years to come. So to you, Bob, and your children, graciously we say thank you, and we'll be by for that coffee at your house.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Trombetta.
Well, it's on this foundation now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Carolyn, I don't even know where to start, but I've known you my whole life. I went to school with the boys, and you've been such an inspiration for this township. You've been that encyclopedia for this township, for everybody. I know I've called you on many occasions, and you've said, Jason, stop whining. Don't stop whining, Jason. Don't worry. We'll get there, Jason. We'll get there. Just stop whining. And you've been such an inspiration to me and an inspiration to all your staff and actually all the residents in this municipality. You've helped out, all the councillors and mayors through your tenure in this community. And, I know, obviously, you are a big help when my mother was a former mayor at this municipality. And obviously you mentioned that, and, she's going to get mad that I didn't tell her about tonight, but it is, it is what it is. I'll deal with that later. But, there's no words to say what you've done for this community and for the residents and all staff members. You are leaving us in good hands of the people that are replacing you. I just wanted to say thank you, and you'll always be in our hearts. Thank you very much, Carolyn. Thanks, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you. Carolyn and I go back to when I first was elected in 2003, so we've gone back a long ways. You've always been somebody that I can rely on to give me proper advice and direction. You're also one to kind of cool me off when I start to get wound up. You've been a tremendous support and an assistance anytime and we need anything or I needed anything. You're always there, and that will always be remembered. And you're an extremely positive person, no matter who you deal with or what you're dealing with, whether it be councillors or being with the public. You always look on the other side. Your gas tank is always half full. And I love and admire you for that. You've been a tremendous support for me, and you've been an extreme help. Anytime I've had any questions, it's always been Carolyn I could call. And if Carolyn didn't know, Carolyn always knew who to forward me to get the answer. Idea for the township. I mean, it's an amazing. I wish you all the best, you and Bob and the family. I love the project you're on. I tried something like that when I first came to the township in 1981. I did exactly the same thing you guys were doing, so I know it's a lot of work to go through what you're doing. But at the end, it's going to be a beautiful dream that you've worked hard for, and I wish you a long and healthy and happy retirement. All the best.
Thank you, Councillor. We're going to go to the clerk now and ask her to say a few words, but also that Ms. Shimei is now our clerk. And at this time, could you introduce our new deputy clerk too as well, Ms. Shimei, who's in staff table there.
All right. Well, first of all, I'll thank you, Carolyn. I wouldn't be here without you. Now you're gonna make me cry. We've been together for 30 years, and I followed you through. So you started in July, and I came through in October 1st. So my 30 years is coming up. So, so I'm going to miss you. Won't be, anyway. I know. And don't worry, I got you on speed dial. And I'd like to introduce our new deputy clerk, Elsa Corey. Elsa's sitting right here. So, provide us with lots of great help and experience through, she knows lots about the FOI and records management and those types of things. So I'm looking forward to working with Elsa and learning lots from her as well. And I think that will be a great team together. So just like Carolyn and I. So thank you.
Very good. I'm going to leave Miss Hendry to last. Is there any senior staff? Brian or Dennis or Donna or Vanessa?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really, I just want to say thank you to Carolyn like everyone else has. She's been a great guide and resource and somebody that is hard to replace and will be hard to replace for years. But we know she's not far away, and knowing Carolyn, she'll probably be crazy enough to pick up the phone when we call. But all the best, Carolyn. We're going to miss you here.
Dennis? Chief?
Carolyn, geez. Writing reports, correcting my grammar. Your words of wisdom go a long way. So on behalf of myself and my 45 guys on the fire service, I wish you all the best in your retirement.
Thank you, Chief. Donna?
Carolyn, I think the thing that I'll remember most is you really were like a mother for all of us, even though there's not a big age gap there. You're the one we could all go to when we were having a hard day or we needed a sounding board. And even when you just sat there and listened, that's all we needed. And I thank you.
Vanessa?
I also just want to say thank you, Carolyn. Since I started, and it will be 3 years in October, the library has gone through a lot of changes. We'll have 2 new facilities soon, a staff reorg, and through all of it, you've been there and been a wonderful support. And I have to say that even looking back at other colleagues and people I've worked with, I've never worked with anyone who was such a strong supporter. And as other staff have said, no matter what it was, whether it was, stress out or a problem to deal with, you're always there and always happy. Your door is always open and you're always, always so pleasant and wonderful to deal with. You'll be very, very much missed here. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Hendry?
So Carolyn, our time together was very, very short and sweet. And you're one of the reasons why I joined the organization. You, if you can imagine trying to join a place where the staff have been together for 30 years and you try to fit in and try to lead them, it's a bit of an uphill climb, but you certainly helped ease that transition. So I really appreciate that. I think with everybody so worried about you leaving and leaving all your great knowledge, I think I'm finally going to get records management onto the top of our priority list. So I thank you for that. And lastly, if when I leave and I get as many or even half as many accolades as you've received tonight, I would leave with a really full heart. So I wish you well and a really long and healthy and happy retirement.
All right. Thank you so much, Carolyn. All the best. We'll see you around. And you have to be off for at least a year before you volunteer somewhere, though, okay? Okay. Do you really? Yeah. And just remember, Jeff Menard likes cherry-filled donuts, okay? Yes. Okay, we'll move on to confirmation of minutes, council minutes, regular August 13, 2018. Councillor Bell, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Billsma that the minutes of the open session portion of August 13, 2018 regular council meeting be accepted, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of August 13, 2018 regular council meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exceptions providing the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Councilors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Balsma. Is there any questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to public meetings under the Planning Act, August 13, 2018 minutes. Councillor Balsma, you have that resolution.
I do, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bell, that the minutes of the public meeting held on August 13, 2018 under Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to 1, zoning bylaw amendment Judith Bowe, file number 1601-15-18, and 2, zoning bylaw amendment Township of West Lincoln, correction to the lot definition as contained in the Township's comprehensive zoning bylaw, file 1601-19-18 be accepted.
Councilors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Balsma and seconded by Councillor Bell. Is there any questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to public meeting site alteration permit, Adam Knuth, 8951 Concession 2 Road, and Veliko Gavrik, 8951 Silver Street, August 13, 2018 minutes. Councillor Chichuk, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gannan that the minutes of the public meeting held on August 13th with respect to site alteration permit applications for the following applicants. 1, Adam Knuth, 8951 Concession 2 Road, permit number 2018-02, and Velko Gavrik, 8244 Silver Street, permit number 2018-03 be accepted.
Councilors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Chichuk and seconded by Councillor Gannan. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. All those opposed? Thank you, Councillor. Please note that Councillor Bell is opposed to this. And D, public meeting under the Planning Act, September 10, 2018 minutes. Councillor Gannan, you have that resolution, please.
I do, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bilsma that the minutes of the public meeting held on September 10th, 2018, under Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to zoning bylaw amendment Brandon and John Guerra, federally licensed medical marijuana growing facility, file number 1601-017-18 be accepted.
Thank you. Councilors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Gannan and seconded by Councillor Balsma. Is there any questions or comments? Remember, this was a technical report. See no questions or comments, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Next up, we have communications. Mr. John Gross, request for a four-way stop at the intersection of Georgia Cactus Drive and in Oakdale Boulevard. Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Chichuk that the correspondence received from Mr. John Gross, 88 Anastasia Boulevard, Smithville, dated August 13, 2018, requesting a four-way stop sign at the intersection of Georgia Cactus Drive and Oakdale Boulevard in Smithville be received, and that Mr. Gross be advised that traffic warrants were undertaken at this intersection in January 2018 to determine if a four-way stop was warranted, which concluded that a four-way stop was unwarranted at this location as it posed risk to the public, both vehicular and pedestrians, and exposed the township to liability.
Thank you, councillors. You've heard the resolution moved by and read out by Councillor Rayner and seconded by Councillor Chichuk. Is there any questions or comments? I see Councillor Bell and then Councillor Gannan, please. And Councillor Chichuk. Go ahead, Councillor Bell.
Just want to say that I'm in full support of having a stop sign there in the name of safety. If you lived in that neighborhood with the amount of kids, and it's a speedway coming up Oakdale, when you hit George Kakakis, there's been quite a few near misses, T-bone accidents, and I support four-way stop there. So I just want to make it known for sure. Since the new survey went in there, Harvest Gate, traffic has increased tremendously in there. you'll probably hear more about it time and time again until it gets a four-way stop, because it definitely is warranted. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gannon?
Thank you. This is an issue that's been ongoing for a period of time. This is Mr. Gross's situation is just the latest in the series of things. Councillor Bell and I have met with the residents over there many times and have discussed it with our Public Works Director in terms of trying to slow the traffic down on Oakdale. And it's horrendous. And we experienced that ourselves just sort of passing through there a couple of weekends ago, where you just can't see. And they're So I understand the warrant from the perspective of looking at that and the fact that it's a provincial warrant, but this is a small community and this is a very busy street, and the residents of the area are very, very concerned about trying to slow the traffic down. They're not happy with the pilot project that was done. They came back again. We attended another meeting with them, Councillor Bell and I, and they're still not happy. And I think they won't be happy until there's a safety issue that's addressed there. And it sort of came at us again a little while ago with the idea of putting stop signs at both of the locations, both corners, at Georgia Cacas and at the other end of Oakdale Boulevard as well. And we sort of let that go at the time. But now that it's come back up again, I would agree with Councillor Bell. I am very much in favor of seeing stop signs put there so that there's no indecision. People are not sure what they're doing. They're supposed to slow down, and one way they stop and one way they don't. And certainly that main dragway going through on Oakdale, there's no stopping and there's very little slowing down as well. They seem to get by it and zoom. And the people who are at either end of those slow down areas are facing the brunt of that right now because the traffic is speeding up as they're leaving the slow down areas at the corner of Georgia Cacas. So I also would support four-way.
Councillor Chichuk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And due to, I'm in that area 4 times a week, at least, going through that same intersection and, or walking through it at times when children are there walking to school and or to school buses and various other things. And while the warrants today don't total to a number that would justify a four-way stop or stop signs all ways or anything else, I think that the sight lines in that area and the intersection itself are counterintuitive because you're never sure who should be going, where they should be going. And what has been done to date has perhaps taken the temperature down a bit, but on the awareness of drivers along Oakdale Boulevard, but it certainly shows in the number of T-bones and other minor accidents that there is need for further review. But that's not the only intersection. We have trouble with others, and the warrants don't justify it. But what I do think we need to do is take a look at this particular intersection, and perhaps others, but this one should have the warrants reviewed again in at least, it was done in January last. If it was in the spring, you'd see more cars probably. You'd see them going at higher speeds, not in the January snow period. So maybe if we could have staff look into reviewing the warrants again in March or April or so to see whether or not it's justifiable, and just pray and keep our fingers crossed that between now and then there's no one actually hurt at that intersection. But I understand the issue there, and I say the counterintuitiveness because I never know whether I'm supposed to stop or whether the other guy's going to stop, because it just doesn't seem right that I'm stopping and they're not. So and it confuses a lot of people. So walking that intersection is very wary as well. So I think we need to put into this, and I would be happy to make an amendment or have those that moved it and seconded it add that the warrants be reviewed in April of 2019 to see if we can justify that.
Okay, Councillor, so 2 things can happen here. We can do an amendment or...
I'd be happy to do an amendment, but I know Councillor Bell was the one who moved it, was it not?
I know it was Councillor Rayner and second by Councillor Chichuk.
Oh, that's where it was.
There's also could be a referral or a deferral in what I've heard too as well. Obviously, Councillor, you can't make the referral, deferral, or Councillor Bell or Gannon because you spoke to it. Is there any member of council that would like to move forward with the amendment or a referral or a deferral?
Councillor Rayner, are you okay with the
amendment?
So as a friendly amendment, we can add it to the original? Or, oh, we got another clerk who's saying we have to do an amendment.
Let's give her a minute to write out the amendment.
tickets on the table.
So just to be clear, no one else wants to speak to the original motion. The next thing I will be asking is for whoever wants to speak to the amendment. First up, I have Councillor Trombetta in a minute, okay? To the amendment too, sir? Okay. Trombetta, Bell. I think you know the gist, so go ahead if you want to speak to the amendment.
Yeah, I just, it's came back a couple times, and I'm not disagreeing, and Councilor Chichuk wants this reviewed one more time, but maybe we should put in there some other alternatives as well, either a flasher, something that we could actually look at. I know the four-way stop is there, but it's been bounced back to us twice, I think, already. I understand it's not a four-way stop at the moment, but it's been back like a couple times so far. So maybe like a flasher on the original stop sign that's there.
Chevrons?
Is that anything? But because it's been bounced back at us so many times, that possibly we can look at some other options, Mr. Mayor. So I'd like to see that on the amendment if it's okay with Councilor Chichuk.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so larger stop sign, flashing red light, chevrons on the bottom. Okay, to the amendment, Mr. Bell, Councillor Bell?
I agree with checking it when the weather is nicer. I'd like to see it get into May or June to make sure that we don't have any ice or snow hanging around in mid-April. It's been known to happen. Because in the nice weather, Councilor Chichuk's right, that's when they're flying through there. So if we're going to do it, let's make sure we do it when the weather is nice. And the other thing, speed bumps. For some reason, we're opposed to speed bumps. Speed bumps work. I can take you to all kinds of other municipalities that have low, gradual speed bumps, and they work. And all they have is a little sign up, speed bump. For some reason, we're very concerned about liabilities of some individual flying over it and bottoming out and ruining the bottom of his car. Really? That's not our concern. The sign's there, the speed bump's there, and it's meant to slow you down. You'd only do it once. So I'd like to see speed bumps added on there also, to look at it, if that's okay with.
Councillor, are you saying that you want speed bumps in the meantime too, as well as the warrants and the increase in stop sign and the flashing beacon red light and the added additional chevrons? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying it should be looked at.
Looked at.
And we need to pick the best that's going to work for us.
Okay, anybody else to the, Councillor Gann to the amendment?
Thank you. Could I just speak to that a little bit? Because further to that, there may be councillors who haven't walked that area or haven't been in that area in particular. One of the things that's in existence now has been a bane of contention to the neighbors who are there as well, and that is the things put in the middle of the road that say slow down, you know, from the two sides of Oakdale. But in addition to that, that required no parking signs inside the zone where they are, which has also been a concern to the neighbors. And so they just feel that people are slowing down. So it's, you know, and then speeding up, and that the speed is even worse because they've been made to slow down through these things that they all seem to think are stupid. But it seemed to be the pilot project, the attempt from our municipality to do something about the speed of the travel of vehicles on Oakdale. And the people who live there are saying it was a good try, but it's not working. And I think this is the next step of that. So I think what Councillor Bell is trying to say is, let's investigate all the different things that are out there. And we were told when we asked that question about speed bumps, when these others were being put in, that no, we don't like speed bumps. But I do think we have to look at what other municipalities are doing with slowing down traffic in various ways. And it just would seem to the residents who live over there, both sides of the street on Oakdale, both sides of Georgia Cactus, back about 5 or 6 houses along each side, none of those people are happy with the current situation. So definitely it requires looking at something further. Okay.
So I see this report coming back is what I do. Councillor Rayner?
What about putting a roundabout? That
No
slows
roundabouts.
everybody down.
chevrons is underneath the stop signs. You know, they like the orange and yellow diagonal lines. No. Okay, so we're going to read out the amendment right now. I'm going to let the clerk read it out because it's her writing. Go ahead, Ms. Shime.
The amendment is that staff be and are hereby authorized to obtain a warrant for the intersection of Georgia Cactus Drive and Oakdale Boulevard in April 2019 and report back accordingly at a future committee council meeting in 2019, and that staff be directed to investigate the installation of safety items to increase visibility and slow traffic down near the intersection of Georgia Cactus Drive and Oakdale Boulevard, including larger stop signs, flashing lights, speed bumps, and chevrons.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Sounds good to me. So I will call the vote to the amendment. Thank you, everybody who chimed in there. All those in favor to the amendment? And that is carried. And to the original motion as amended? All in favor? And that is carried too. Okay, thank you. So you'll know that this is for both the amendment and the original motion as amended. Okay, thank you, everyone. We will skip over Mayor's remarks. We'll move on to report of committee, Planning, Building, Environmental Committee, September 10th, 2018 minutes. Councillor Chichuk, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Ganand that the minutes of the open session portion of the September 10th, 2018 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted and the recommendations contained therein be approved, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the September 10th, 2018 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you, councillors. You've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Chichuk and seconded by Councillor Ganand. It does say here in my notes here that Councillor Bell advised that he wanted to speak to confidential item P10418 of the September 10th, 2018 Planning, Building, Environmental confidential minutes, as he wanted further clarification on this matter. Ms. Shime, does that mean that we're going to go into confidential now or later? Please explain.
I would suggest that we refer the confidential portion, so we would extract the closed session portion of that resolution that Councillor Chichuk just moved and Councillor Ganand seconded. So we will remove the second part about the confidential minutes, and that will go on the table after we vote on the regular portion of the meeting or the open session portion of the meeting. The closed session would go on the table, and then I would suggest a referral motion to refer those to closed session at the end of tonight's meeting.
Okay, thank you. So the first part of that says that the minutes of the open session portion of the September 10th, 2018 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted and the recommendations contained therein be approved. Okay, I have a mover, I have a seconder. Any comments or questions about that? All in favor? And that is carried. And as for the second part of that, who wants to remove the closed
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that the second portion of that original motion be moved to the confidential portion of tonight's meeting.
Okay, second it, please.
Councillor Ganand, probably.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Chichuk, second by Councillor Ganand. Any comments or questions to that? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of moving that to confidential later on, and that is carried. Okay, thank you. Where are we now? Okay, so moved by Councillor Chichuk, a second by Councillor, I'm not sure, that the minutes of the open session portion. Okay, we did that. And then to address the confidential minutes of September 10th, Planning, Building. Okay, so we did that too. The reconsideration, okay, so we've gone all through that. Thank you. So the reconsideration is there for people to read, and the notice of motion to rescind is also there. So then that puts us down into number 13, other business, section A, consent agenda items. Note, all items listed below are considered to be routine and non-controversial and will be approved by one resolution. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests it, in which case the item will be removed from the consent resolution and considered immediately following adoption of the remaining consent agenda items. Councilor Tremetta, you have that resolution, please, to read out.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Bosma that the council hereby approves the following consent agenda items. Item 1 be hereby accepted, and items number 2 to 7 be hereby received for information, and that items 8 and 9 are hereby received, and that recommendations contained therein are adopted with the exemption of item numbers.
Okay, councilors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councilor Trambetta and seconded by Councilor Bosma. Is there any items of the consent agenda that you would wish to pull at this time? I see Councilor Bell. Which one would you wish to pull?
Item 9.
Item 9, okay, thank you. Any other ones? Councilor Ganan? Councilor Ganan has number 3. Left side of the table, any? Okay, so we're going to vote on 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Seeing no more comments or questions, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We'll start with number 9, Councilor Bell. You pulled that one. That's recommendation report PD 14618, which is an amendment to Atwater Site Plan Agreement authorizing bylaw file number 2100-011-018. Councilor Bell, if you could put that on the table, please.
The report PD 146-18 relating to the amendment to Atwater Site Plan Agreement authorizing bylaw dated September 17, 2018 be received, and that bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and the clerk to sign an amended site plan agreement that replaces the affected engineering plans.
Councilor, you've heard the resolution moved by Councilor Bell and seconded by Councilor Bosma. Go ahead, Councilor Bell.
So as you read through this, the Atwater site plan had a lot of problems. And if you just look at the overview, -3, -4, -5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right through talks about a lot of the problems that are taking place out there. And as you go through the document down further, it talks about under current situation, the third paragraph, the reality on the ground was not consistent with the engineering plans. As a result, the site plan did not clearly dictate what was to be built and therefore what should be enforced. And it goes on to talk about the construction was another version, not consistent with either the approved plan, privacy fences between units, should have been constructed for joint barrier and visibility purposes on the line between the units, and then it goes on. And none of this really happened, and then it comes on to say, as a result, Phillips Homes now provided revised versions of the affected engineering plans, including the grading plan, the landscape plan, as found in attached number 2, this report, which now has been removed, the privacy screens between each unit, such that enforcement of the privacy screens is not on the site plan matter and allows for condo owners. You know, this is a very convenient for Phillips now to come forward with revised versions. And this is not what the homeowners paid for. You know, once again, this goes beyond what it appears that the township agrees with the developer. I mean, there's private screens that should have been built on the property, on the decks to separate the two homes. This past spring, some of the neighbors were cutting holes in them, and they shouldn't have been doing that. The condo board, township should have been intervening. And what's happening, because of these windows they put, they're looking right into the other person's home. So this was brought to Philip's attention, and it's like, well, you know, nothing's happened. Now they're bringing it back. They want to revise it. At the end of the day, what they're doing is they're going to wash their hands of it, turn it over to the board, and now you got to go on and you got to get all in agreement with the proposed amendment to the site plan agreement. And what it talks about is township staff have had extensive discussions with township legal counsel about this matter as well. One of the challenges will be, how do we get all 46 unit homeowners to sign an amending agreement for registration purposes? If that is not possible, staff will be reporting back to the planning committee in the next steps. Who's going to look after these 46 residents? Is that going to be a township task? Is that a Phillips task? To convince them they should sign on, to sign off for this? You know, staff has recommended that authority be granted to authorize the mayor and the clerk to sign into an amending agreement with the existing Atwater site plan. I'll apologize in advance for what I'm going to say, but this is total bullshit. I just totally disagree with it. Here we are again sticking it to homeowners because a developer couldn't come through and finish what they were supposed to be doing. So I totally opposed to it. I will not be voting in favor of it, no how, no way. And I asked my fellow councilors around the horseshoe to look at this before they vote on it and make sure what they're voting on. Because this is just opening the door for other developers to come and do the same thing. It's no different than the wind turbines. When they put one too close to the property line or too close to the home, they went back to the government and says, well, that's okay, no problem, just leave, we'll give you an amendment. We're doing the very same thing right here. They come back, they want this amendment instead of correcting all these problems. And we're saying, sure, no problem, we'll do it for you. Well, this council will not do it for them. I'm sorry.
Is there, do you need any clarification or questioning for planning at this time? I hear loud and clear.
I think plans made it pretty clear what they want to do. Phyllis has asked, and they're saying, yeah, we agree.
Okay.
And I totally disagree.
Okay, thank you.
Because I know what's going on out there, so.
Mr. Treble.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just for some additional clarity, not only is the developer asking for this change to the plans, but the condo board, which represents the 46 homeowners, is also in support of the proposed change. And staff have had one meeting with the board to discuss this. Another meeting is scheduled for this Friday, whereby it will be made clear that the responsibility to achieve this will be on the condo board to get all of the homeowner units to sign on. It's something that the condo board wants, and therefore the condo board will have to do what they can to get their membership to show support.
So in the meantime, I usually sign these right after the council meeting. So, I mean, you know, going forward, there's still more work here to be done. So I'm not signing this either, Mr. Treble, until I find out.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the report recommends the signing of an authorizing bylaw, which then would give the clerk and mayor the authority to sign an amending agreement once it's signed by all of the 46 homeowners. So you're right, the agreement won't be signed right away. It will be given to the condo board to do their task first.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councilor Brown, going back to you.
Just one comment about the condo board. It's a joke.
Okay, so why is that though? We just can't make statements like that.
Because the condo board does not listen to the residents. It's been going on since that development's been built. And nothing but complaints. The residents go to the condo board. No, can't do this, you can't do that. It's the township's problem. It's been going on for a couple of years now. So, you know, we're going to turn it over to them. Like I say, I'm not in agreement with it.
So I would suggest then they're not going to sign off on it then.
Well, I don't know. But I'm just
Okay.
saying I'm not in agreement, and council needs to look at it.
Okay. I have Councilor Trembetta.
Thanks, Mayor.
Chichuk,
Just
do you want to speak too?
Just to further on what Brian said, you said that it has to be all agreed by everyone in the condominium site prior to or after this is approved, or it needs, like, why isn't it approved first by all the people living in the condo and then coming to council?
Mr. Treble?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've been working with the condo board, who is meant to represent their membership. But in order to have registration occur on title, all 46 homeowners have to sign off. So I've been doing it as a two-step process. First, working with the board, who should be representing their membership, and then allowing the board to go back and get the signatures required. So once we've passed an authorizing bylaw, then it'll be up to the board to get all the signatures as required.
Okay. Follow up, Councillor Trombetta?
No, I pretty much said once this is approved, then it's going to go back.
Okay. Microphone?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, it just seems like we're putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm getting it here. Like, if we had it, like, once it's approved, then you don't really need all obviously, the homeowners to approve. That's the way it's kind of coming across, unless I'm incorrect somewhere here, Mr. Mayor, but that's why it's sounding, it's putting the cart before obviously the cart before the horse here. So maybe I need some more clarification here.
Mr. Treble, please.
Unless council passes the authorizing bylaw, staff really don't have the authority to go tell the board, get the signatures on the agreement. So it's much easier for staff if I can say to the board, you achieve your end of the bargain and the township's ready.
Okay, thank you. Good. Councillor Chichak, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is about the condo board. I know that the condominiums, when they first start out, are a makeup of management companies and or representatives of the developer, et cetera, and are not really constituted by members of the condo corp. Has this condo turned itself over to, through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff? Do we know whether the condo corporation has been populated with members residing in the condominium?
Mr. Treble?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, this is a board of members of the ownership group in that organization.
Councillor?
Of the resident ownership group.
Yes.
So my question came from the comment made by Councillor Bell, because if it hadn't been that we have full membership from the condo residents, then, I mean, condos have problems with their boards. Everybody doesn't like somebody, but they elect them and they get on with life. So if they've elected these people and they are their board, I'm wondering if we could perhaps get more clarification about why it's a joke. Because I just wanted to, if I don't understand the comment, and
Well,
before I ask any other questions, if we could get an elaboration on that.
Well, that's, Councillor, that's kind of where I was going too. Like, I mean, like,
Without naming names of present board members, they don't represent all the residents that are there. If you want residents, how many you want me to bring over? I mean, I get calls continuously from them residents, and they don't feel they're being represented by the board.
Gotcha.
For me to approve this, I can't, because I don't feel they're all being represented, just from what I'm hearing from the actual members that live in that complex. And our planning department knows what's going on there because we've had these discussions. What members are on the board and why they're not representing the residents. It's just.
Okay.
So a furtherance to that.
It's a private condo, I get that. But we're turning this over and these guys will be defenseless up there. And until they get this straightened out and they come back to us and say, we got all 46 on side, I can't agree with it.
but that sounds to me what's going to happen here. We're just doing, what did you call it, Mr. Treble, the confirming bylaw? And then it's up to the corporation to go back and get all 46 signatures. Am I understanding that correctly?
It's up to the condo board to go back and get
Right.
the signatures. Yes.
So, yeah, and I believe there are recourse with the condominium corporation, Mr. Mayor, to further that. I understand the complexities of a condo, and that's why you have to think very carefully before you get into a condo versus a freehold. So, without disputing it, and I totally understand where Councillor Bell, his heart lies, but we can't rewrite the Condo Corp Act. So, if these people are there is methods to deal with condominium boards if they don't feel they're being represented. And I think one of them is to basically fire the condo board and to start all over again. So I am concerned. I am concerned with the with the issues that are before us. I am concerned with the length of time and perhaps the extensive discussions not resulting in everyone feeling comfortable. And I did think we were at a cart before the horse kind of situation as well, because I thought that we were leaving these people adrift. But if what we're doing is putting in place a resolution to have the condo corporation then get 46 signatures that agree and attest to this being appropriate, you are not going to be authorized to sign the bylaw, nor is the clerk. So if that's what we have before us, and Mr. Treble has just attested to that, I don't believe we're out of order to pass this and give them the understanding that if they're with it, we are too. So I don't like the method that it and the time it took to get here, but it's our role to sign this if they are now satisfied.
If they're asking. Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ganan, and then I have Councillor Bosma.
Thank you. Mr. Treble, this is through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Treble. So the assumption is then it goes to the board, and they have to get their 46 people to sign. And if they don't, what would the next step be?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, the existing site plan agreement is a binding document. So failure to achieve the amendment the board is supporting, then they would have to comply with the site plan as signed and agreed upon at present, which probably will result in a number of different actions being required to ensure compliance with the existing site plan. I've identified deficiencies with respect to fences and decks, or privacy screens on the decks, and there may be more issues that would have to be resolved as well.
Thank you. I also have been well aware of the problems in the Atwater development, and many people are not happy. And other people who don't live there are questioning what they're seeing in terms of some of the things that are happening there as well. So you talked about meeting with them again on Friday of this week. Are we just a few days? I mean, the whole cart before the horse thing resonated with me before Councillor Trombetta even brought it up. I'm wondering, should this that we're looking at tonight be coming after your next meeting on Friday, where you have further clarification and another meeting with the condo board representatives?
So I asked that question, and Mr. Treble had the response. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in my mind, this is no different than the way we deal with any amending bylaw to any site plan agreement. The authority is sought, but should there be issues that resolve, then the staff reports back at that point. I need some direction to be able to negotiate, because if this council is not prepared to sign, then there's no sense having 46 homeowners try to sign. It's not worth it. So if this council is not prepared to consider the amendment, then seems to me the need for a meeting on Friday is over.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor?
I understand the gist of what everybody's saying, and I understand my colleagues' concerns. Ultimately, though, this agreement is between the developer, the condo board, and the residents. And I think we risk stepping into an area that we don't need to muck around with. I do see this as being relatively routine. There are parties. There's 3 parties I see in there that need to work together, and we're a 4th party that has a minor role to play at this point. And so I would like to see those parties over there resolve whatever they can, and if they can get the agreement from the homeowners, I really just think, who are we to step into it, so to speak. So I'm very comfortable at this point to just further this and let the parties mediate amongst themselves without stalling that process, when potentially, hypothetically even, or potentially, there may not even be a problem. They might be able to negotiate all the signatures that are necessary to move this amendment forward. And then we're the ones that look like we were trying to hold the whole thing up. So at this point, there's no repercussions if we move ahead. I think there may be repercussions if we stall this, and you have 3 parties who may or may not, but we don't know, be willing to work together, and maybe they have a plan to get the signatures that are necessary. So at this point, I'm very comfortable to just move this forward and let those parties do their work.
Okay, so I'm going to read it one more time. The report PD 14618 relating to an amendment to Abwater Site Plan Agreement authorizing bylaw dated September 17th, 2018 be received, and 2, that a bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an amending site plan agreement that replaces the affected engineering plans. Seeing no more questions or comments, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Okay, that lost. That's carried. No, it's lost, sorry. Okay, thank you everyone for your comments. We're still not done on the consent agenda items. I still have number 3, West Lincoln Public Library Board minutes of July 10th, 2018, and Councillor Ganan, you brought that up, please.
I did, thank you. Thank you, John. And it will be, oops, I need a signature, Dave, please. Thank you. This will be brief. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bilsma that the West Lincoln Public Library minutes of meetings held on July 10th, 2018 and August 16th, 2018 be and are hereby received for information. And I just bring this issue up because we have so many things happening right now, and I'm doing it by way of a bit of an announcement. If this had just gone through, people would have read them, but the public might not be aware. I wanted you to know that in June, there were 6,400 approximately uses of the library, including books, e-books, computers, and program attendance. But July and August, with the opening of the renovated Wellandport and just all the things that have been happening all summer, both of those last 2 months, the summer months, had over 8,300 library uses. And so phenomenal growth in the library system. Really, it's going well. And in addition to that, I might be stealing Vanessa's thunder a little bit, but the new library at our brand new community center is due to open October 12th with an opening to the public so that people can just come through and see regular, we're going to do a grand opening later on, but it will be on a tour basis. Come and see the new library and see all that there is to offer there. And so that's coming very, very soon, and it's very exciting. But we are not going to have another meeting in time to make sure that people are well aware of that prior to it happening. So that's all. Thank you.
That's good. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Let's move on to Section B, Planning, Building, Environmental Items. Planner 1, Alexa Cooper, and Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble. Report number PD 14118, which is a recommendation report, zoning bylaw amendment for Judith Brow, Agent Rick DeBrookie, file number 1601-01518. Councillor Bell, you have this resolution, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Council Gadan that report PD 141-18 regarding Judith Wright and Rick DeBarski zoning bylaw amendment, file number 1601-015-18, dated September 17th, 2018, be received, and that Section 3417 of the Planning Act apply, and that no further public meeting is required. And that the application for zoning bylaw amendment 1601-015-18 submitted by Rick DeBorky on behalf of Judith Bard be approved.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Ganand. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We will move on to Director of Planning and Building, Mr. Brian Treble, re-report number PD 14518, which is a recommendation report zoning bylaw amendment, Township of West Lincoln, housekeeping item lot definition. Councillor Bosma, you have that resolution.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Chichok that report PD 145-18 regarding adjustment to definition of lot in comprehensive zone bylaw 2017-70, file number 1601-19-18 dated September 17, 2018 be received, and 2, that Section 34, Sub 17 of the Planning Act apply and that no further public meeting is required. And 3, that zoning bylaw amendment 1601-19-18 be approved.
Councilors, you've heard the discussion and the resolution by Councillor Bosma, second by Councillor Chichuk. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We will move on to D, Planner 2, Mr. Garrett Boerma, and Director of Planning and Building, Mr. Brian Trouble. This is about report number PD 13518, which is a recommendation report, zoning bylaw amendment, and official plan amendment and draft plan of condominium for 375 Station Street, otherwise known as RVL Contracting. Councillor Ganan, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bilsma. 1, that report PD-135-18 regarding RVL Contracting, Inc. application for official plan amendment, application for rezoning, application for draft plan of condominium, file number 1701-087-17, official plan amendment, file number 1601-014-17, zoning bylaw amendment, file number 2000-086-17, plan of condominium, dated September 17, 2018, be received, and 2, that section 34 bracket 17 of the Planning Act apply, and that no further public meeting is required, and 3, that application for official plan amendment number 49, file 1701-087-17, and a corresponding bylaw be passed, be approved, and 4, that application for zoning bylaw amendment 1601-003-16 submitted by Upper Canada Consultants on behalf of RVL Contracting, Inc., and a corresponding bylaw be passed, be approved, and 5, that the draft plan of vacant land condominium file number 2000-081-16 CDM be approved as per attachment 1 in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, and regulations thereunder, subject to the conditions contained in attachment number 2 to PD-135-18, and, not finished, 6, that the applicant be advised that the township's draft approval of this plan vacant land condominium will lapse 3 years from the date of draft approval unless Township Council grants an extension of the approval period. If an extension is requested, an updated review will occur and revisions to the conditions of approval may be necessary at that time. And 7, that staff be authorized to circulate notice of decision for official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and plan of condominium with corresponding 20-day appeal period.
Councilors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Ganan and second by Councillor Balsma. Is there any questions or comments?
Don't ask me to.
Rick, is this going to take 3 years? No, I didn't think so. Questions?
Yeah, so when this came up initially, one of the concerns, they addressed the concern about the appearance from Station Street, and I appreciate that. They heard that loud and clear.
Mm-hmm.
My concern had to do with the realignment. So the parcel is a little bit small, given the fabric of the land. And I understand that, you know, this chunk of land goes back decades as a parcel of land, and they don't own the land around the parcel that we're talking about. And so we raised the issue with respect to realigning the roads, and I'm wondering if there was any thought or consideration to how that's going to fit with a potential possible future development fabric. We run into issues when pieces, and I understand that the history of this, but pieces are developed ahead of wholes. And so the current climate of development expansion of a municipality tends to happen in larger pieces and larger chunks. We see that in the we've run into this problem recently as we go through this process of secondary plan in and around the Greek Hall and that new addition, where there are chunks and parcels that couldn't conceive of a possible development that's happening there, and so we're trying to take a quilt and sections of a quilt and put them together in a construct. Here we have the opportunity with a potential future development possibly happening, and we don't know how that whole process will go.
Or when.
Or when in the future. Is there a way, and knowing that across the road there was, a street coming kind of in the vicinity of this, if there was any consideration or any way that we could address this as a potential part of a larger fabric?
Okay, so I'm going to go to you, Mr. Troubles. Did you get that
I
question?
think he understands. I've had a conversation with him before about it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll certainly start, but if there's more questions, be happy to respond. I have had some discussions with the region specific to the question that has been raised, and the region has made it perfectly clear about 3 or 4 different pieces. Number one, the boundary as it is right now is all I can use to proceed forward. I can't make any assumptions about what may or may not happen beyond that boundary. And given that the extension of a road such as Hornack, I believe it would be, due north might make some sense in paper form, but is simply not allowed at this point in time. Further to that, the province in its policy regime that we're dealing with takes a look at vacant parcels and in some ways penalizes us when those lots are not developed. So really, it's kind of like an infill situation that we would deal with in an area surrounded by houses where we're kind of dealt the deck of cards in 1975 in this case, and we have to try and do the best we can with the situation that we have. The best I can say is that should an urban boundary occur, then we'll have to make sure that the surrounding land uses are compatible with this particular development should approval be granted. I can't say much more than the fact that I talked to the region, but it's simply a policy piece that's fixed at this point.
Okay, thank you. Just to conclude then, I just wanted to say that I think this is going to be a bit of a challenge to work around in a possible future scenario, and I think we're going to kind of rue the day that we did this. But okay, I understand the policy, and that was. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bell, please.
So when this was before us a few months ago, it was pretty clear by this council that you wanted the fronts of the houses facing the street, whether that be Station or Spring Street. This is now back before us, and we just heard from the representatives from Upper Canada that they addressed comments, and I'm not sure what it was that they did, because all these houses are still facing inward. They put wrought iron out, put some more trees out to decorate the street. The street view is still the same. We're seeing the back of a house, the side of a house. We're not seeing the fronts of the houses. The video was nice going down Station Street. Again, all we've seen was some shrubs, some wrought iron, side of a house, the back of a house. There was absolutely nothing in that video that showed us, or they've done on the resubmitted drawings, that done what we asked. The Urban Design Guidelines 616, it talks about the reverse lot frontages, backyards facing the street. That's discouraged. We don't want that. And it goes on to talk about 6117. And in this application, the draft plan, condominium proposes 11 dwelling units in the form of townhouses and semi-detached units, which are fronted on the internal condominium street, since the dwellings are proposed to face the internal street and the rear and the side yards of most units will be visible from either Station Street or Spring Creek. The applicant has provided some elevation drawings for the units, providing in-house design features for the side and the rear views. That's not what he was asked to do. He's brought back the same drawings. And again, this just demonstrates that we have a developer telling the township what they are gonna do. What makes this developer different from any other developer? We've asked them, if it's part of the urban design plan, this is what we want. It's nice to say, yeah, we're putting trees and wrought iron. What happens 4 years from now? The neighbor, I get mad at you and they say, I'm putting a fence up. Now you got fences facing out on the street. You got fences running down the middle of the property lines. That's what he was sent back to come back with new drawings. Instead, he went back and spent his money placing wrought iron and more bushes in there to say that should make you guys happy. That's not what we want. We want these homes fronts facing the street. Station's going to be a main artery coming and going out of our town. Spring Creek is going to be a very busy street one day. It's in the future plans. It's coming. And members of council, they had many concerns about the appearance of the development from Station Street, and it's just there. And because of those reasons, there's no way that I can support what's come back to us. There was a request too that the staff look into the need for a larger roadway allowance, because it talks about it earlier in there about this development, if they need a larger roadway allowance. There was nothing mentioned about that. I don't see anything in that. The applicants have now decided to proceed with their original layout with some design enhancements. It's right in the document. That's what they want to do, is proceed with the original layout with some enhancements. That's not what they're asked to take back and come back with something new and have these homes facing out onto the streets. So it's just can't support this. The applicants have requested that this application be brought forward to the planning committee and council at this time for a decision. They're hoping that we're going to like the green trees and the wrought iron fences and say, yeah, go ahead and build it. Well, I'm not, so I am opposed to it. So, thanks.
Mr. Trouble, can you make comments to that, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, couple of comments. The first is Councillor Bell is correct that the application before us is very similar to the one that was presented at the public meeting, except that to give the applicants credit, they have done a lot to spruce up the exteriors of the units and the exteriors of the property. So their message basically is, we think this is just as attractive or more attractive than those that would be front-facing. We presented a variety of different options to the developer, including the regions concept, which is a bit of a compromise, and that was just flip the 3 units in the corner of Spring Creek and Station Street, flip those 3 around, and all have been met with some resistance. What I can say is that I have had discussions with the lawyer for RVL Construction, who is a condo expert and is recognized as such even by Sullivan Mahoney. And the message that I've been given by him is that certainly there is a way that through the declarations you can clearly require that exterior activities be kept to a minimum, such that 20 years or 40 years down the road, the condos should be doing their job to make sure that the changes that have occurred still show the exterior of the building as the main feature, and they don't block or view or hide the view, I should say, of the condos, to attempt to sort of achieve this look into the future and not have backyards cluttered with various different items. Having said that, I think, as we've heard from Councillor Bell before, there is at least one condo in this town where things don't seem to work the same way as what that lawyer is indicating a condo should be able to operate as. The final piece, if I may, Mr. Mayor, is that staff have consulted with Township Public Works, and Township Public Works, and it is spelled out in the report somewhere, Township Public Works is of the opinion that they have adequate road area, that they do not need any additional road widening at this time off of Spring Creek, and a widening has already occurred on Station.
Very simple question, Mr. Trouble. Did they meet our design guidelines?
The trouble that we have, Mr. Mayor, I guess, is the fact that the guidelines are just that. They're guidelines. They talk about an attractive streetscape, and they talk about ensuring that it's a pleasant view. Is it mandatory that the units face the road? I don't think I can say that. It's certainly preferred, but I wouldn't go so far as to say it's mandatory. So I think if you were to ask the consultant for RVL, they would say, in fact, I think we did hear Jennifer say this complies. I think it possibly complies would be my answer, but it could be better.
Right. Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Ganand, then I have Councillor Chichak, and then I have Councillor Trumbetta. Councillor Ganand, please.
I felt very much as Councillor Bell does when this presentation came to us the first time, but I actually was, although we still have bats on the street, I was very impressed with what the developers brought forward. I think the roof lines and the variation have created a more appealing look from the outside. I think that their attempt to make the two properties that would be on Station Street, that would be the side of the property, they made a really nice attempt to make that look attractive. And as far as the backs facing out, there are backs and there are backs. These backs have overhanging patios that look very much like some of the front porches that on the doors that I've just been knocking on. I think people would not be opposed to seeing that as they drove down the street. And when you think about the backs and backyards, I think about on 614 where we have that a whole subdivision where all the backyards came along, and then we have this row of fencing, a board fencing, and that's not at all attractive. And I think our intent was to get rid of that look of things. This proposal doesn't look anything like that to me at all. It looks neat and tidy, and if there's a way through the condominium board to keep it looking neat and tidy, then I think that is very desirable in our town. I thought that I had read in the report that the road issue had been addressed, so thank you for that confirmation, Mr. Treadle. I know that Councilor Bell questioned that, but I thought that I had read that was now well enough and the public had no problem with that comment. I think that we have to be looking at the fact that property has been part of the urban boundary and has been sitting for decades and decades, just waiting for somebody to come along and do it. And I don't think it'll ever be a perfect answer, but I think this is a very respectable and very nice answer to filling in that corner. It certainly would be a nicer opening going in there into the Station Meadows part than it is currently. So I don't have to get to that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chichak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think a number of the points that I was going to make about the road getting widened and the fact that we had the road allowance taken when the subdivision beside it was done have been answered already. So I don't, and we can't go beyond the confines of a urban road or municipal road allowance. So to preserve for something that may or may not happen into the future is well beyond the scope of what this infill site is doing. I think that's one of the issues. This is urban boundary, so this is considered infill. So we can't put it into a master planning process or a secondary planning process that'll be for a major portion of our municipality. This is a infill within the urban boundary. So is there better that can be done? I think that what this developer is doing is it's not telling us what we will do. He's trying to work with us. He's brought back something that is a condo. It is smaller units. It's what we said we wanted. It may not have the price point that we want. Maybe there's something we can do, but we can't ask for pretty on something in a small piece of land with 11 units that isn't always going to be the gateway to our municipality, let's face it. That will be part of an extended community as time goes on. But what it does do is it gives eyes on the street. It does not block us with fences. The developer has improved the massing to make the units with options of lofts to allow for families, which we asked for. It is an intensification that has a permanency of maintaining a public view, like has been said. The backyard porches look like front yard porches. the internal garage system takes away from all of the laneways being required to empty onto Spring Creek. So there's been a good deal of effort made by the developer to address the items we asked for. If it's not enough, then we need to give direction on what it is that's not enough. But we can't keep, we need to start making our guidelines more mandatory. We need to start looking at expectations from each and every developer so that it's not one-offs. We started with guidelines as was answered to one of our councillor questions. These are not mandatory. They're discouraged, but they're not prohibitive in 6.1.6. I just was reading it again. So did the developer make improvements to this site? Absolutely, from what it was that was asked. My understanding when speaking with with Mr. Treble, is that the condo deck will have specific language in it that maintains a wrought iron fence, which says that there won't be a board-on-board, won't conceal what's there. There'll be an attendance of a street-friendly kind of interface between that condo and the street as it extends past them, and it won't close it off, but it'll give privacy or a demarcation point to the condo and the private lands that are behind that fence. So was there a lot done? I think there was. And if we've seen that developers haven't just proceeded to an OMB or to an LPAD or to anything else, I think this developer has come to us and said, I did what I heard. Is it enough? That's what we're here to answer tonight. But I must say, I don't want a developer coming here and say, this will be what we want when we want it. It's what this township wants. And if we need to be clear, this is a perfect example of where we need to strengthen what we expect in our community, how we want it, where we want it, when we want it. So I think the developer has tried and has done a good job of doing things that will be preserved in the next 20, 30 years, so that what we see now will be what we see then, and that it's a mix of units that will not mean it's only there for one age group. So that's the parts that I enjoyed, because we need the kind of housing that will take us from youth out into spending your happy years here in West Lincoln. So I'm encouraged by the work that's been done by the developer, and I'm encouraged by the fact that he was willing to work with us to move forward and not taking us somewhere we didn't want to go.
Okay. Is Mr. Boerma in the room? Gary, could you put the slide back up again for me, please, just so we can have it in the background, so I can look at it one more time? Yeah. You want to wait, Councilor Trumpeter, for that, or go ahead? Just the video, yeah, the video, please. Sure. Sure. Okay, go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're going down 30 Road right now, right?
Going north on 30.
Going north on 30, okay. I'm just trying to comprehend what we kind of, because it was a while back, we were more concerned on looking into backyards coming up and down this street and a wood fence. Was that the issue back then? It was a while back, and I just need to jog my memory a bit. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Treble, because without pulling out the recommendation that was
Mr.
previously
Treble, please.
done.
Through you, Mr.
Put it
Mayor.
on a loop, Garrett. Just put it on a loop.
There were a couple of specific concerns that came up by committee when the public meeting occurred. The first was the discussion, as Councillor Bell has identified, around front-facing versus rear-facing units. And the proposal that is before us still has units facing the interior street as opposed to facing onto Spring Creek or Station. But as with, for example, the window that's just passing by, there's some very attractive features that they've added into the sides or rears of the units to try and make them look as much like fronts of units that you might be knocking on right now. And that's the argument or the sales pitch or presentation that's being presented. The other that was raised by the mayor back at that point was the fact that he wanted to see some two-story design in here as well, and I think the example was like the corner of Kerman and Livingston in Grimsby. And the design before us has, I believe it's 3 two-story units. The middle unit in each of the 3 plexes is a two-story unit, and you can kind of see some of that as we're going by just over on the far side. So, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Trombetta, those are a couple of the keys. I think the concern was this is as of right now, this is an entrance to the town, so we need to do what we can to make sure that we're proud and we don't have that clutter and unattractiveness 20 years from now that could potentially take away from the character and appearance of the urban setting.
So that's obviously the backyard there, right? Like I can't, sorry, a little blurry eyes here. Can't flying by and trying to see that's the side yard, right?
That's that side, and now you're back.
Yeah, so what's going in the back of that? That would be like obviously a wood paneling fence facing on the backside, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the intent of the design is that it be some sort of low-level material like wrought iron or something that is not a block or a barrier that allows you to see through and see the entrance or the building facade, even if it is the rear, because of its design, it's still attractive. So it's meant to keep fencing low, maybe some hedges and whatnot, but not solid board on board 6 feet high like you would find in a lot of developments around the town. So the intent, I think, would be that the condo agreement would have to spell out specifically what can and cannot occur in those yards to make sure that something doesn't happen that's taking away from the character down the road.
So that first corner house there on the coming between Station and 14, that's all backyard. That's on that kitty corner, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the screen that's before us right now
That's-
has backyard there.
So that's the
and at the main
So
corner.
when you're making a left on Station Street, you're going to see someone's backyard.
Correct.
And there'll be obviously wrought iron fences there that are low. So if someone decides to purchase this or rent it out to someone, you're going to see all their contents. So you're going to see the pool in the backyard. You can see all the contents on the front of the road, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Technically.
Technically, that would be correct. My understanding of the condo declarations that the Van Leeuwens have, there are no opportunities for things like pools in the rear yard or sheds in the rear yard. And I think it's that kind of stuff that's essential in order to make sure that we're satisfied with the character down the road. So we have to be sure that the wording is ironclad if we go down this road, and that we can somehow ensure 20 years from now that the appearance is as you see it there.
Correct. The first house there, it's kind of throwing me off a bit. Like I said, you're seeing on a kitty corner, you're seeing someone's backyard. Where there was going to be no privacy fence or there's nothing, it's going to be all open. So, it enables someone to, that first house there, it's pretty much the backyard of something. And so when you're leaving, that's what you're seeing. When you're coming in and looking to your right, that's what you're seeing. I know in our recommendation, because my mind is remembering, we wanted that fixed up so we didn't see people's backyards, I think. Is that sort of correct, Brian? That was the whole idea why they had to come back, because we didn't want to look at people's backyards on the corner of an intersection there, right? So,
through you, Mr. Mayor, to address that, I think that's where Councillor Bell is at, in the sense that if you were to flip the units, you could still have the driveways in off the interior street, but then have the front yards out towards the main roads. And that's not the proposal that's before you, but it has been something that staff have asked the developer to take a look at, but their preferred option is what's before you tonight.
So they came back with this option they're obviously not what kind of we looked at the beginning.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my understanding is with all of the various additions and roof lines and peaks and whatnot that are on these units, these will be high-end to the point where they will start at 5 or higher. So they are, I think, more costly, though, because they've added in features for character purposes, and that's part of what they're arguing makes these a good quality product.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Brian.
Okay. Is there any other councillors who wish to speak at this time? Seeing none? Okay. So moved by Councillor Gannon and seconded by Councillor Bosma. I don't want to go through and read it, the whole 7 bullet points again. Seeing no more comments or questions, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor? Okay. Moved by Councillor Gannon, seconded by Councillor Bosma. All those in favor of this proposal? That is lost. Okay. Mr. Van Leeuwen, I would ask you to sit down with the planning department and figure out next steps, please. Okay, we'll move on. Director of Planning and Building, Brian Trouble, report number PD 14818, recommendation report, site alteration permit, Velco Gavrik, 8244 Silver Street, permit number 002, 2018. Councillor Trembetta, you have that resolution, please.
We skipped one.
Above it, I apologize, sorry. I stuck the stroke through the E too quick. Director of Planning and Building, Mr. Brian Trouble, report number PD 14918, recommendation report, site alteration permit, Hans and Adam Knuth, 8951, Concession 2 Road, permit number 003, 2018. Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and second by Councillor Joanne Chichak that one report PD-149-18 regarding site alteration permit 003-2018 8951 Concession Road 2, Hans and Adam Knuth, dated September 17, 2018, be received. And 2, that a payment of $5,000 be received to offset public works repair costs on Concession 2 Road as a result of providing truck traffic. And 3, that once Clause 2 above is satisfied, site alteration permit 003-218 be issued in accordance with the EXP engineering report. And 4, that a bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter an agreement as found in attachment 6 to this report, along with an additional security deposit of $5,000. And that Public Works approve the truck route plan prior to the commencement of this operation.
So, councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Rayner and second by Councillor Chichak. Questions or comments, please? Councillor Chichak?
Mr. Mayor, in part of that report, and I apologize, that's why I was going a little crazy because my computer decided to have a hiccup here. We have a reference to the agreement and the permit, and the permit is to go to the end of the year, when in fact when we issue a permit, normally we issue it for 12 months. And the reason I bring that up is if council is willing to put these two forward as staff recommend, it would be useful for the staff to be delegated to allow the permit to go for up to 12 months, because this is September. By the time this thing gets done, it's going to be October. There's crops on the fields. The roads are going to start getting beaten with rain and then possibly snow. And if we're going to do this, what I don't want to do is have trucks and fill coming in throughout the winter months. So that would delay it until April, May. So we've just gone through all this. By the way, for both of these, I commend the applicants for the work that they've done to get the appropriate engineering information so that we could have an entirety of it. And that's why I'm thinking if we've got these engineering reports, we've made these two people, and I speak to the both, but I mean E right now, but the same upholds. They've got, normally we'd give them a permit for 12 months. I'd like that delegated to staff if possible so that they can then start up at the appropriate time in spring when they've found fill, had it approved, and can cite it without damaging our roads any further. And I don't think that's inappropriate because we usually give the permit for a year.
Okay, so Mr. Treble, tell me why you gave them 3 months.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the reason for the permit structured the way it is because the entire site alteration bylaw is written on a calendar year schedule. They're allowed to have up to 500 cubic meters of fill per year. They're allowed to have up to 1,000 cubic meters per year based on a an approval of staff, or over 1,000 per year is based on the approval of council. So staff have written it based on the per year basis because that's what the bylaw contemplates as the approval. I acknowledge full well we're this late in the season, and you know, whether it's doable or not becomes a question. The other challenge in all of this that I'll put on the table is that in discussions with Public Works, it's been clear that they're concerned about the jeopardy of their roads, and hence they don't want the heavy trucks driving on the roads when the roads are soft. So there is a window of time. It may be small right now. I don't know how we know. If a Florence was to come through, I think it would be shut. But the bottom line is, you know, the weather is going to play into this as well, which may justify, as pointed out, that something beyond the end of the year makes sense in this case, but it's not the way the bylaw is written, so it's not the authority staff have at this point.
Okay, so Councillor, so the recommendation is 3 months. You suggest 12 months. You've heard justification for 3. Do you wish to make an amendment at this time?
I do, Mr. Mayor. I think that a recommendation is appropriate, given that we could be shut down starting next week. You know, but they're not going to get this stuff up and going before we could have some weather issues. So I would say that we would, an amendment to suggest that the permit be extended for up to a year based on staff delegated authority. That means that they don't have to come back, they don't have to go through this whole thing again, or whatever I see the CAO's handy going up. So I'm happy to do it in a manner that is appropriate for staff to be able to monitor.
Okay, so we have an amendment on the floor right now. I will go right to the amendment for yes, I understand. Let me just clarify here. So we're on the amendment, so these are questions or answers to the amendment. I will go to the CAO and then anybody else who'd wish to comment on the amendment. Go ahead, Madam CAO.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that, should it be moved to a year length, that or up to a year length, that the permitted amount would be for the amount that is already being contemplated and then not added on to it. Just wanted to make sure that was pointed out.
Okay, good, good. Anybody else to the amendment? Councillor Gannon?
Thank you. I had the same concern, so, and part of it's been addressed, but I have the application. Is there normally a time limit on the validity? I think that Mr. Clerk has told us that. Then I asked, does all the work need to be done before the expiration date, which was the December date? But my next part of it is if it's not completed, if we don't do something to allow for that to happen and it's not completed, do the applicants have to start all over again? Or is it, you know, are they able to just come and ask for an extension of what they've already been through? I don't know how that fits.
Mr. Treble?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in normal circumstances, they would have to come back in the following year and reapply, because the permit is normally only valid for the calendar year, as I had mentioned. So in this case, I would be of the opinion, though, that if you gave a 12-month extension, that would be waived in this particular case, and only if we went beyond whatever 12 months would work out to, that would they need to be applying for an extension in this particular file. But normally, once you hit December 31st, on January 1st of the following year, they can bring in their 50 loads of fill without approval of the township, or they can start the whole process again in normal fashion. Hence the reason the CAO was mentioning that that wouldn't apply in this case.
I don't have a seconder for the amendment. Who would like to? You do now? Okay. Okay. Who else wants to speak to the amendment? Councillor Bell? Anybody over here?
Changing the calendar year, so now it would be, normally it would be finished in December. You want to give them 12 more months. So that's going to bring us back to this time next year. This is 12 months. Why are we doing that? Because you're in the same boat. So why would you not wait until January, come back, and go a 12-month cycle? Or are we going to change our calendar year?
Mr. Mayor.
This is going to be a little bit of a screw-up, to be honest with you.
Not giving him 12 more months, they're giving him 12 months from this date,
That's
so
right.
this time next year.
This is going to put us
Right.
back this time next
Right.
year in the same dilemma, where if they don't have the dirt, they're going to reapply and we're going to do it again.
Yep, got you.
So why aren't we staying with the original, come back in January? They're not going to be taking fill there during the winter anyway.
Yep.
So they've got basically starting sometime in October, usually gets crappy, and who knows what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Chichuk because it was her amendments, and she can explain one more time as to why you put forth this amendment. Councillor, please.
So I looked at this and I thought, okay, we've been through this and we've got engineering reports now. We've got discussion about compaction. We've got neighbors who are happy, are willing to work with this. And so most of my concerns were allayed because I couldn't point to anyone objecting to why we would do this. And I looked at the work that was done and the fact that there are crops on those fields. And before the combine can get those crops off, for them to be able to get this thing done, we're going to be into a period where I don't want them on our roads. So if we don't want them on the roads, we want them to go beyond, we're going to give them, they're not going to do it December, January, and the calendar year, the permit time came crashing down because that was highlighted in the report. That's actually what brought it to my attention. So I thought, okay, how do we get them into a period where it's safe for us on our roads, because that was our biggest concern. So I thought, well, we've got to get them. You're given 12 months if you pull out a permit in January. So all I was doing was trying to get them to a safe period for our roads into a season, which would probably be like May, June, July. And that's why I said, I don't care, up to of next year. If they can't get it off before November of this year, it's unlikely they're going to get it off in 2018. They're not going to get it off in January, February, March, because until April, if the roads aren't in good condition or they're soft. So I was looking at May to August, that's all. And that took almost a year. So if I'm wrong in my calculations.
Nobody's saying you're wrong. I'm just curious, why not just let this year run out, start the new year in January, they go for that whole year, and then they come back next year? Because we changed the cycle for this one. We got one right after this one. Are we going to do the same thing for that one?
More or
for
less.
The next one? So I'm just.
So then we're issuing a permit for 2019, not 2018.
Yeah, just let this one run out, and that's all I'm saying.
Okay. So you understand her, Councillor Chichuk's amendment now. Okay. I have Councillor Rayner and then Councillor Trombetta. Councillor Rayner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
To the amendment.
Actually, with regards to moving the dirt, the actual best time to move the dirt is in the winter time. If we don't get any snow and the ground freezes, and I've done this before and I know other people have done it, you do the least damage to your field and the least damage to anything when everything is frozen solid. And you can move the dirt very easily onto the fields without causing any soil compaction whatsoever. It's unlikely that it will happen, but some years you do get that, where you get a real cold before you get the snow. If you get the snow, it acts as an insulation and you can't do it. But a couple years ago, I did move a fair bit of soil on my property from one spot to another that was already on my field with absolutely no damage because the ground was frozen solid and it didn't put a mark in it. So there is the possibility of a deep freeze in January to move the dirt and definitely do no damage to the roads. So I mean, there is an option, but there's no guarantee it's going to be a good year to do that. So there is the possibility, but I agree with Councillor Bell. If we do respect the fact that all this work has been done, and we do go on a calendar year, it seems weird to move 112, and then we've got one now that stops at the 17th of September in 2019. It would be better to see if he possibly could get it all done this fall, and then it's a done deal anyways. And then if not, then just renew it in January based on the premise that all the homework has been done, and then we haven't moved away from what we always do, which is a year-to-year, calendar year kind of thing, and then we don't mess up what we've already got scheduled. And it's not going to hurt the gentleman at all because he's still going to get his approval, just with the hopes that maybe he can get it done. Maybe we will have a dry fall. Maybe he gets it all done.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Trombetta? Microphone, thank you.
Councillor Rayner kind of said it. If he can get it done, he can get it done. I kind of understand what Councillor Rayner's saying and Councillor Chichuk. Like, you know, you get into that wet season and it might be hard, right? And then they're going to have to come in and ask for an extension, right? You know, I know hauling material in the muddy season is, you're not going to move, you're just going to spin tires. So I don't know what the easier answer is with the applicants. If an extension's needed or they just come in afterwards, I don't know. I guess it's yet to be seen, but I don't know what better consensus is. So I'm kind of.
So, Mr. Trouble, can you weigh in on this? You've heard what the Sixth Amendment is going to be. So,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have not had discussions with either applicant to know if this amendment works with them or not. I believe, I could stand to be corrected, but I believe that Mr. Gavrick's field does not have any crop on it because of the fact that he got stopped before he was able to finish the fill, and therefore the crop did not get planted, or at least that would be my opinion of the field. And I'm not certain whether or not Mr. Knuth's land includes land under cultivation. There is some of his fields that are not cultivated either. So it's possible that crops won't be an issue, but as I say, I haven't had a chance to speak to either applicant in that regard.
Sure, let's ask. Yeah.
Can we ask the gentlemen both? I know they're in the crowd. Are you guys able to get it done, or do you think you need to come back in January? Like, I don't know.
We're probably gonna have to come back in January.
Okay. Which I know at the time of year, right? Like, it's
Yeah,
when it's
we probably
available.
get so much done, and then we hit bad weather, we can't bring nothing in. So we're gonna have
Correct.
to come back in January.
Okay.
But I have a question.
Come to the microphone, please, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Gavrick.
We're doing things a little unorthodox here, but that's okay.
If we have to come back in January, do we have to put another $1,000 into another permit?
That, I don't have that answer. That's
Mr. Treble, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would think staff would need the money in order to process the permit, but council can always return it through a resolution of council. So I would need it in order to be able to process the application as staff, but council can certainly choose to waive that requirement as part of any decision.
There you go.
So now that changes,
Now it changes.
Okay, Council, okay.
So
Council
that's-
Trembetta, you still have the floor.
So that's why I had to need to bring up the applicants, because that changes a lot now too, right? So, yeah, so timing of year is if they get that application, it should be for that year permit. It shouldn't be, it's pretty much they have to double, it sounds like they got to double down. So, just wanted to make those comments, Mr. Mayor, and I got my answers, so thank you very much. Maybe I don't know if
Okay.
anybody else wants to comment.
You want to go, Councilor Rayner? Microphone, please.
That there's no way they should pay twice. I mean, then let's go with the 12 months, and it finishes the 17th of September 2019, and they've got a whole year.
Okay, good. Thank you. Councilor Bell for a second time. This is to the amendment.
Yeah, to the amendment. I hear what they're saying. I hear what the applicants are saying. I guess I look at it in a different light, in the sense that had they come forward when they were bringing the dirt in initially, they probably would have had all the dirt brought in by now, but that didn't happen. So their mistake becomes our problem, and I'm not sure that's the way it works. It's very simple. We have a bylaw, site alteration, we have rules if you want to bring in surplus of what you're allowed, and these are the fees. So now we want to do one of two things for them: either extend their 12 months from today, 12 months from now. Are we going to do that for all future applicants? Is that going to be the new normal? So whenever you apply, that's when your 12 months will start? Or are we staying with what we got? And it's unfortunate, like you say, had they come forward right at the start, everything would have been all done by now. I no doubt, because we've wasted all this time going there. Or, as was suggested, they come forward in January, they apply again. It's basically, everything's done, the groundwork is all done. And if council sees fit, they can return $1,000 to them.
Okay, so who had their hand up first over here? Ladies first? Councilor Chichak?
Thank you, Councilor Trombetta. I think a number of good points have been made, but, you know, we're talking about people who are not following our bylaws. So if I want to bring in fill, I'm going to follow a calendar year, and I can show evidence that I am within the bylaw. I can bring in loads of topsoil to fix my field problems. We're talking about the extraordinary person now, and when we contemplated the bylaw, we didn't think about someone coming in at the end of the year. And I don't disagree with Councillor Bell. He makes a very good point. If people know they're going to bring in 10,000 loads or 15,000 loads, if they come in immediately, then they will follow something, and they'll think about when they're going to do it, and they'll get a permit at the appropriate time, and they'll get there. But they're going to still find themselves in a problem if they come to us in September and say, I can get 10,000 loads, I want to apply for a permit, I'm going to follow all the rules, and I'm going to spend $5,000 to get an engineer. And then, because the bylaw currently has an end, I'm here before you, council, and you take a couple weeks to handle it, I'm going to have to do it all again in January. So my point is, this one is the first time we've had someone come in. It's late in the year, and we are going to give them, if we decide as a council to give them the permit, they're going to have to apply again, and it will be a double fee, when we didn't contemplate that in the bylaw. So my point is that while our bylaw is there, we can, in fact, agree that there's no doubling of fees. And that's all I was trying to avoid, was the fee and the fact that they have an engineering report. And that wasn't what we contemplated in the bylaw. We contemplated compliance. They're doing the compliance part now, and now I want them to have a fee for the 12 months. But we didn't identify which 12 months. Is it a calendar? Why would somebody take on a permit in December? And why should they have to wait until January? So Councillor Rayner says you should do it in winter, and our roads people say don't come on my roads anywhere near winter. I don't know what the right answer is. And so I was just trying to find a happy medium that said to people who want to comply with the law that we would do it in a way to work with them and try and get more people complying right from the very get-go. So that was the whole idea of the amendment, and I leave it in the hands of those that have the hand to put up.
Well, hold on one sec. We do have half-load road stipulations, though, right, Mr. Treble?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we do, and those would apply.
Right. Okay. So they're still taking precedence, right? Councilor Trombetta?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What Councilor Bell was saying was, we're going to have to give exceptions, this and that, and we should go back to the time. But for this case, Mr. Knuth did come in here and apologize to this committee. He did stand up here and said, I made a mistake. He did say, I'm taking responsibility for the road. And I commended him that night for doing that, because we have a lot of residents in this town that are going around and having these lots and bringing in material and not coming to address council and let them know that, Mr. Mayor. So, he came in, he stood up here, and and that's what I wanted to say to many residents is that, be straightforward, come up, acknowledge that you made a mistake, which he did, and I can't hold his feet to the fire is what I'm trying to say, Mr. Mayor. The permit's out. He wants to do it for a year. He's coming to it because these are the channels he's learned to do as we're going along, as we're all learning as these channels are coming along, how will this new site alteration bylaw permit, because this is pretty much a new case, the first one that's came here. So this is all new to us, so if it's new to me as a council member, this first one, I'm quite sure it's got to be way new for residents in the public. So, to come here and say, what, and I'm agreeing with Councillor Chichuk that, he's just following our procedures. I bet you if he kind of knew that he had to pay double, probably would have said, well, wait a second, let me wait. But that didn't happen because, again, this is the first one that came to us. So I agree with Councillor Chichuk. Let this one for the calendar year go, because it's the first case. It's a new site alteration bylaw that we've learned as a council, and we're moving forward with it, right? So those are just my comments, Mr. Mayor. So.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Trombetta. Councillor Rayner, really quickly, or can we go to the vote of the amendment?
No, I want to just a couple things.
Okay, go ahead.
We get away from the calendar year and we go to a fiscal year now. So we've changed a little bit of their accounting, but it relatively is the same thing. And what we're doing is we're allowing them for the year. I believe this is the first time that somebody's come forward through you to Mr. Treble. Is that not correct, with the proper procedures of getting approval from council. This is the very first one, why not?
Mr. Treble?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was one other one that we dealt with earlier, and that was for the Agricultural Society lands at the corner of Mud and Grimsby Mountain. But the scale there was considerably smaller than the scale here.
In this particular case, this gentleman has paid for damage to the road. He's followed the procedure. He's even got to the point of an engineering report. I was quite concerned when this first came up before that somebody was coming forward to go through the proper steps of just trying to put dirt on his field in order to grow a crop, that he was going through one heck of a lot. And I was worried it was almost like we were setting an example for other people. If they watch this, don't try to put any more dirt on your field because you're going to go through a lot of rigmarole that you don't want to go through. I'm glad that this has turned around better today, but the point is that he's followed the procedures. He's done everything that's been asked, and I think enough is enough. We beat this thing to death, and let's just move forward, and hopefully other people will be coming that'll do this. We'll see this example and won't try to do it the other way. I don't believe it was done with any malice intent. The gentleman has been very upfront, very honest, and he's followed the rules. So let's move forward now and let him do his job. Thank you.
Question? We have a question.
Okay, Councilor Bell.
So really what I'm hearing is that we don't want to double dip him, and I get that. So why don't we, instead of changing our calendar year, why don't we prorate it? What the charge would be for the year, obviously divided by 12, prorate it for the last couple of months of the year till he gets to January, do your application again, and now you're back into the calendar year. That way we're not changing it for everybody else that comes forward. Just, I agree with Councilor Chimbetta said, it's a learning curve for everybody. We're all learning. And I agree with what the applicant said. Why do I have to pay twice? Technically now, yes. But if we prorate it for the last 3 months of the year, then that'll get them into January again, and then we do the calendar year. And the new council that comes forward, I think they need to bring this up with the bylaw, and let's kind of clarify what a calendar year is going to be and what the fee is, or is it going to be on a prorated scale for a year?
So that's what I was going to suggest. I was going to suggest that the CAO and staff and Ms. DeFilippis sit down and think about this going forward as far as prorating it for the rest of the year. So, Madam CAO, can you take that under direction to do that with Ms. DeFilippis? We good?
I believe so.
You're okay, Mr. Phillips? Yeah. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay, I want to move on here, folks. So right now, I've got an amendment on the floor, moved by Councilor Chichek, second by Councilor Trombetta, that the recommendation contained in report number PD 14918 be amended to add a sixth recommendation as follows. 6, that authority be delegated to staff to extend this site alteration period for up to a full 12-month period if needed. Seeing no more questions or comments, all those in favor, hands high. That carries. Okay, now the original motion as amended. Moved by Councilor Rayner, second by Councilor Chichek. Do I need to read it again, or are we all good? Questions or comments? Madam CAO, you have a question?
I apologize, but can you read the last statement again, because I don't know if it jived with the prorated direction.
The Public Works approved the truck route plan prior to the commencement of this operation? That one? Okay. 4 said that a bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter an agreement. That one?
The one that talked about the 12 months.
The new one.
The new amendment. Okay. That authority be delegated to staff to extend the site alteration period for up to a full 12-month period if needed.
There should be another one, though. That deals with this one.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, folks, I just called for the amendment. Any more comments or questions? I called the vote, and we gave the vote. Where are we up here? What's going on?
We don't have a permit that is going to be there. We don't have a permit fee that's been dealt with. And what all we've done is read that again.
We gave staff direction to go back and do it. That's what I said to the CAO. He said, Madam CAO, please sit down with staff and Ms. DeFilippis to look at a prorated method of payment. Did we all hear that? Yeah. Okay, that's what I did, and it's passed. We'll move on to original motion as amended. Moved by Councilor Rayner, second by Councilor Chichuk.
Call the vote. All those in favor? Questions or comments? Yeah, for the original motion as amended. This is for Hans and Adam Knuth. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, still 8951 Concession 2 Road. See no more questions or comments? Call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. No, I did not do that, Councillor. That was the amendment. This is the original motion as amended. Okay, we'll move on to F, Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, report number PD 14818, recommendation report, site alteration permit, Velco Gavrik, 8244 Silver Street, permit number 002, 2018. Councilor Trembetta, you have that resolution, and I'll be looking for somebody with an amendment just very similar to the last one.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Bell, that report PD 14818 regarding site alteration permit 002, 2018, 8244 Silver Street, correct me if I'm wrong, Velco Gavrik, dated September 17, 2018, be received, and that a site alteration permit 002, 2018 be issued, and that the fill operation occur under the supervision of EXP Engineering to ensure compliance with the proposed plan, and that an authorizing bylaw be adopted to permit the mayor and clerk to sign into an agreement as found at attachment 7, ensuring compliance with their plan, and that a $5,000 deposit be collected from the property owner prior to issuance of the site alteration permit to ensure all works are completed to the satisfaction of the Township of West Lincoln in accordance with the site alteration bylaw.
Councilors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councilor Trembetta and second by Councilor Bell. Questions or comments or amendments?
Question.
Comments, questions, or amendments? So
before an amendment, I would like to just comment and ask a question actually about the original. So one of the things through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Treble, I'm still concerned about the NPCA and the fact that they responded at the end of July to the McMahon's email. And has there been anything since? Because we had several questions the last time asking, about the NPCA. Would they come back out and see the property? I know the McMahons were very concerned about that. Have you had anything more recently than July 30th from the NPCA?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I have. I have reached out to the Conservation Authority as recently as last week when I received the EXP engineering report. I shared that report with Darren McKenzie of the Conservation Authority, and he has confirmed for me that his position still stands, that the 2-meter wide buffer with the silt fencing is the adequate requirement that the Conservation Authority requires for the fill to occur. In terms of an actual on-site meeting, I haven't been able to get him to agree to that, but I think the McMahons probably could achieve that if they wished. They seem to respond better, I think, to the private property owners with those kind of requests. But certainly the Conservation Authority is aware of the nature of the proposal, the details of the EXP report, and their position remains unchanged.
So further to that, the McMahon spoke tonight about their well. I think that's the first time that that piece of information has come to us. So is there a way through any of what we're doing tonight or going forward, is there a way to protect the integrity of that well so that they don't have a problem?
Mr. Treble?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what I would suggest is that the recommendations of the report require EXP Engineering to be supervising the project. So I think what I would recommend is EXP be made known of the fact that they need to be conscious of this well next door, and it will be their expertise, their experience, and their liability that will be on the line with respect to the provision and protection, I would say. That's the reason I've set it up that way, is to make EXP responsible in the event that something goes wrong with this project.
And you will provide to them the information about the well that's sort of brand new to all of us tonight?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to do so, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Treble.
Okay.
Through you, Mayor. McMahon's, they do have a well. They're very concerned about it, obviously. And they're also concerned about the drainage. And I understood what they were saying. The drainage trench is up and down. it's high here, it's low over here. Is there any way that we can ask the applicant to make sure that drainage ditch trench is sloped adequately so that we don't have highs and lows in it, so that it won't carry any major rainfalls or anything away from the site? Because they do have concerns, and the other thing they asked was that if their well should become contaminated because of this, who's going to pay for this?
Mhm.
You know, what's in place for them 5 years down the road if that trench fills up with silt and stuff and overflows and gets in their well?
Mr. Treble?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just checking the EXP report. There's one of the reports that I know talked about having to improve the channel, but I think that was the other one that we just dealt with. I'm just quickly looking at this one and I don't see similar language about it. But once again, I think I'll raise the concern about the topography and advise EXP that they will need to be on top of that as well. And as for the well, I go back to the statement I made earlier that EXP is to be supervising, and the responsibility lies with them to ensure that things are done properly. In this case, there's no expertise inside the township with respect to the provision of proper grading or proper compaction or anything of that nature. So that's why I've written the report to recommend that EXP is the one responsible for ensuring a proper design and a proper implementation.
Okay, so let me just state the obvious here. So EXP goes down this road in 3 years, goes out of business. Who's on the hook then?
You're asking a question through you, Mr. Mayor, that is beyond my expertise. I would assume that there's errors and omissions insurance and other insurance policies that would kick in, but I'm out of my league, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councilor Trombetta, please. Yes. Sorry, Councilor Rayner, or Councilor Bell, were you done?
No, I still looking for some type of answer for damages. Should something go wrong, who's going to pay the neighbor if they need something done with that well or a new well drilled?
Is it a civil suit, Mr. Treble? Is that what you're alluding to?
That would, through you, Mr. Mayor, that would seem to be, I think, how the bylaw is written, is to contemplate that it's the liability rests with the owner of the land, and in this case, EXP as well. I'm just trying to find the draft of the agreement.
Well, Mr. Treble's looking for that. Councilor Trombetta, can you, is your question for Mr. Treble, or who's it for? Yes, I am, Councilor.
No, my questions were, sort of kind of scope this or put this all, like, the McMahons had some concerns. I was hoping Mr. Treble can have a representative from EXP Engineering meet with the McMahons to see that their concerns are met, Mr. Treble. I think that would make them feel comfortable. If a representative can meet with the residents to make sure that they are comfortable, and at least they can have that in writing if that's possible. If someone from the engineering could walk over that property and see them. Just like, gotcha. I'm quite sure, just like any consultant that's out there, usually they do walk the sites and, you know, they do talk to the residents, because I'm in from that field. So I think that would make them feel a little bit comfortable if they could, you know, meet talk to them about some of their concerns, which they said are very minor. They said to this meeting that they weren't against it. They just said they have a couple minor concerns, and that was it. So I think that would make them feel comfortable if that's possible. I don't know.
Mr. Treble?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just turned around and got an indication that would be fine. The EXP group is hired by the consulting team that represents the farmers, and they're okay with that. So we can certainly make that request as well. And Mr. Mayor, there is a provision inside the draft of the agreement, which is attachment 7 to this report, that says that the owners acknowledge and agree that the township has no control over and is not responsible or liable for any of the adverse effects or damages resulting from clauses 1.4.1 to 1.4.9 on the owner's property or neighboring property or any other property as a result of the permit. So the liability rests with the owner.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so that's comments or questions. Now we'll be looking to see if there's an amendment, much the same as the last one. Councillor Chichuk, please.
I would like to place an amendment onto the floor that is identical to the one we had for the previous application. I'm not sure if it answers everything we wanted, but at least they're consistent.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Chichuk, second by Councillor Bosma for the amendment.
Councillor Trombetta just said he would, but go for it. Sorry. Now, if I can speak to the amendment.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to be, I want to understand something. If these two owners have got, if our agreement says they're responsible for it and their neighbors are responsible for making sure they're okay, if EXP is going to design a drainage system, it's going to be designed by the engineers. It will be done by some company that's supposed to follow the engineering design. If it gets clogged up, silted up, doesn't work, there are two methods of getting things remedied. There's the riparian rights of one person against the other, and there's also the fact that if the channel has been changed and now needs to have modification, that's completely with what I read of this agreement is between the two owners. Am I correct?
Mr. Treble?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would generally agree with that. We do have EXP providing a report at the end of the project for the file, but I would agree that if there's any ongoing situations, it'd be between the two property owners down the road.
So the design is done by EXP. We're not going to do anything more, and they need to comply to it. So we're without remedy, cause, or implication in this whole thing. Okay. That being understood, Mr. Mayor, the motion that was put forward by the clerk is there.
The amendment says that moved by Councillor Chichuk, second by Councillor Bosma, very much the same as the last one, that the recommendation contained in the report number PD 14818, is that correct? Be amended to add a sixth recommendation as follows. 6, that authority be delegated to staff to extend the site alteration period for up to a full 12-month period if needed. Okay. I will call the vote on the amendment. All those in favor? And that is carried. Now the original motion as amended. Comments or questions? No, we're good. All those in favor? And that is carried too as well. Okay, thank you. G, thank you. Planner 1, Alexa Cooper, and Director of Planning and Building, Mr. Brian Treble. Report number PD 13118, Recommendation Report, Official Plan Amendment and Zoning Bylaw Amendment. This is height restrictions in the commercial core and high-density residential designations. Councillor Bell, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Council Bilsma that report PD 131-18 regarding proposed maximum height increase in the commercial core and height density residential designations of the Township of West Lincoln official plan and corresponding zoning bylaw amendment, file number 1701-002-18, official plan amendment, OP amendment number 51, file number 1601-016-18, zoning bylaw amendment dated September 17, 2017, be received, and that section 3417 of the Planning Act apply and that no further public meeting be required, and that the official plan amendment number 51 as found in attachment 3 be approved and the staff circulate notice of approval in accordance with the Planning Act, and that the application of zone bylaw amendment 1601-016-18 initiated by the Township of West Lincoln be approved.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Chichuk. Questions or comments, please?
Councillor Bosma?
So I did second it, so we have a discussion, obviously, just get on the floor, but the increase in height from 5 to 6 stories in the official plan to allow to an increase of up to a maximum of 10 stories, I find that to be just very problematic. I'm opposed to that. I spoke during the public meeting, 5 to 6 stories. We don't even have any 5 to 6 stories, so our first
Councillor, we do have a 6-story building in our urban core.
This is quite a bit taller, and it's not. Okay, so I'm opposed to this. I think that the 10 stories is completely far and above what our town is familiar with and used to, and I know someday perhaps we might get to that point, but at this point I don't think in the development of our little town that 10 stories is appropriate.
Okay.
I'll be opposed.
Okay. Councillor Bell?
If I recall, when this discussion come up to vote, the height restrictions, we talked and I thought we agreed to 6 stories and we used the old mill, the top of the mill as being something that would represent approximately 6 stories high. I don't recall a conversation about 10 stories. I could be wrong, you know. Memory's failing a little bit. I don't recall 10 stories.
We'll have a
6
coffee.
for sure.
We'll have a coffee date for you, Councillor.
I'm okay with 6 stories, but
Mr. Treble, can you answer the councillor's question, please?
Be happy to. The way the draft of these documents is put together for presentation, it puts the limit at 6 stories. The zoning bylaw has a maximum height of 20 meters, I believe it is off the top, and the official plan says 6 stories. If any developer wants to go above 6 stories, that requires the approval of council through a site-specific application with a site-specific zoning, and it will only happen in the event that council's in agreement and council says you're going to pay for something that's a community benefit in the area to offset the benefit that the developer gets by getting that extra height. So it's set at 6, with the only way you can go above 6 is with a site-specific approval by council.
Okay.
I'm okay with the biggest part, but I wouldn't want to see 10 stories in our downtown core, that's all. Anything outside of it, I would be okay with, but not in the downtown core.
Okay, well, this is referring to the downtown core, so,
So I'm not okay with it.
okay. So, but you understand it is 6 stories is the maximum height,
Maximum unless they apply to go to 10.
and that's what he's saying?
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
I've never understood, I'm just saying.
okay, okay. Yeah. We're good over here? Councillor Chichuk?
I guess sometimes we get a little bit off track by not understanding exactly where this downtown core would be. And what could we do? Is it the old town part of Smithville? And could we look at that? Could we look at the fact that the very main street, the oldest part of Smithville, would be exempt through some historical designation? What could we do to eliminate 10-story buildings from the oldest part of Smithville? Do you get what I'm saying? The downtown core, but the downtown core may be the main street of Smithville where we want to get a feel of what the historic part of Smithville was. So if it's the downtown core but excluded the most historic parts or whatever, so that we maintained that Highway 20 or whatever street you want to call it, St. Catharines, Canberra, the intersection, if we wanted to somehow exclude them, do we have a way of doing that in order to not impose 10 stories in that specific area? We don't have a historic designation, I know, but we do have a BIA area. We have an area where we
have
allow...
a CIP area.
Sorry, CIP. We also have an area where we allow various other special circumstances, whether it's garbage or whatever. In that specific area, can we exclude that, which is the area that might be best eliminated from a 10-story attempt to come back to us? because I understand, nobody's getting 10 stories unless a council of the day approves it. I understand that completely. And there's benefits that we can render for the town if we do go to 10 stories. We're getting that, we're getting that Section 37-ish effect, where we'll let you have 10 stories if you give us the moon. But if we don't want that in a certain area that's more historic, would we have to designate it historic? Would we have to identify it separately?
Mr. Treble? Through you, Mr. Mayor. Right now, I think the best I can suggest is that council take a look at page 290
Right.
of the agenda for tonight. Page 290 identifies the lands that are affected by this official plan amendment, and they include effectively the CIP area, as the mayor has identified, as well as some high-density properties that are sort of surrounding the downtown core. And then there's a proposal for 2 additional properties which are on Highway 20, one being the former Imperial Oil, I think it is, property that is currently fenced, and the other, the property immediately to the east of that, which is in private ownership. So, Mr. Mayor, not knowing exactly which parcels are specifically in mind, that drawing is what's affected at present.
Which essentially is our CIP area. Right,
Generally,
so, yeah,
that's correct,
Generally,
yes.
that follows that.
It stops
that
at the creek on the
guideline.
south end, whereas the CIP does extend a little bit further on the south side, but otherwise, it's more or less the CIP.
Right. Okay. Okay. Councillor Canaan?
Thank you. In trying to explain when this came up before to people who've asked me questions about it since, I have used the height at the top of the mill as a way. I think people needed that reference point. I think the thing that would be most alarming in the downtown core, and that maybe what my colleagues are alluding to, is the fact that we would end up in that area with a situation much like Grimsby has had, with this big proposal going in at a spot where there's traffic congestion already and the potential for more. And we're already hearing that from people about the developments that are coming out onto St. Catherine Street and how much is dumping out. So I think we would want to be very cautious about looking at something equivalent to 7, 8, 9 stories there in terms of access to the road and so on. So,
Mr. Treble?
The one thing I can say, Mr. Mayor, is that in discussions I've had with property owners who are, kind of following this policy change, and there's 3 or 4 of them out there, but one specifically, the one thing that we have not changed is the parking ratio, the parking requirements, and that is making it very difficult to achieve height. So I don't think we have a big fear of a 10-story coming through soon, because with the parking requirements, it's a tough thing to
Hard
achieve.
to achieve that.
That's
that
right.
height.
So my understanding is that the provisions as written are of a similar standard to the way they're done in other communities. Of course, compared to Hamilton or Toronto, our numbers are a lot smaller, but it's the parking that's the obstacle in a case like Smithville.
Well, I would think that the other thing that is kind of a stumbling block, though, too, as well, is that once you go to a certain height, you have to use a different material. You go to a certain height, you can build with sticks and wood. Once you go to a certain height, then you have to get into concrete blocks. So that's also a difference, too, from a cost point of view as well.
True, but the wood industry seems to be convincing the development community that high-rises out of wood are possible. Oslo, Norway, I think, just built a skyscraper out of wood, and I'm told that review of those provisions is coming this way.
Yeah, well, we'll watch tonight's news and see how Florence makes out. Not so sure about that. Anyway, who did I forget over here? Who had their hand up? Councillor Bell.
The CIP area, and when we talk about the downtown core, I look at it as being Station Street from the tracks to the bridge by the mill, going out West Street, and I'll go out to Grimsby 5 and up to Industrial, or Town Line, because everything in there is gonna be our downtown core as we can fill in all the voids in there. And I'm not sure we wanna have, and I know they have to come back to council for approval, but, 10 stories, 6 would be what I'd like to see in that area maximum. Anything outside of that's gonna be a new development, and it's gonna change it there for sure, as we go forward.
Councilor Bosma?
Thank you. And I want to, so I started out this discussion, and I want to make sure that my opposition to those, and again, I understand the process. The reason being, that core of our community was built up, and the planning behind it is hundreds of years old. And so we understand when we come down St. Catherine Street, we do this bend and we do another bend, and that's part of the quaintness of our old town, and we know what the pictures look like, and later on in this evening we're going to see what that looked like circa 1912 and 1920, and my concern is also the way that if we were to come across a proposal that went 10 stories, I don't think that when I talk about the fabric, I don't think that the road structure and the infrastructure that we have there is necessarily, we're opening up cans of worms. And so that's why I'm very concerned about going to that, bonusing system up to 10 stories. And so I would agree with my colleague, or he's agreeing with me. I mean, it was just a question of who got the chair's eye first on this. But 6 stories. Let's ease into this so that we build one, and then we see how that bounces and what kind of bubbles and bottlenecks are created by that, and then we can make adjustments and graduate into this thing called Smithville skyscrapers. Those are my concerns.
It's a name for a new junior A hockey team or something. Okay, seeing no more questions or comments, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? We got the recommendation before us, folks. Moved by Councillor Bell, second by Councillor Chichak. That report, PD 13118, regarding proposed maximum height increase in the commercial core and high-density residential designations of the Township of West Lincoln's official plan and corresponding zoning bylaw amendment, blah, 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 that Section 3417 of the Platting Act apply, and that no further public meeting is required, and that official plan amendment number 51, as found in attachment 3, be approved, and that staff circulate notice of approval in accordance with the Planning Act, and 4, that the application for zoning bylaw amendment 1601-01618, initiated by the Township of West Lincoln, be approved. So at this point in time, seeing no more further questions, I'm calling for the vote. All those in favor? It's lost. Okay. Does anybody want to put something else on the table at this time? Councillor Chichak.
Well, Mr. Mayor, what we wanted to do here and what this amendment was doing was trying to get us to a maximum height of 6 stories and allow for bonusing in the future. And that also allowed for various housing types that we've all been looking for juniors, seniors, and in-betweens. I don't think we can just leave this sitting on the table, and I think we need to refer this back to staff, or we need to have staff look at this and come back with a report that is more in keeping with what is been asked for here, which is 6 stories, and then how we would deal with bonusing. When we talked about this in a public meeting, we talked about the fact that bonusing would give us things we didn't have. So it also prevents us from having the housing types that we're going to need, the smaller units, the commercial, the houses above, or the units above commercial. So I think we need to have our staff come back with something that addresses that and still gives us what we need to comply with the densities we have to achieve. So if we send this back to staff to look at alternatives and come back
Well, that'll be something you have to bring up under other business, Madam, or
You're right, this
Councillor
was
Chichak.
defeated. This was
It's
defeated, so I'm looking for a motion,
Yeah.
and I'll do it at the appropriate time.
Yeah. And I agree with most of the things you said there, Councillor Chichak, so. Okay. Wow. We'll move on to H. Planner 2, Gary Borderman, Director of Planning and Building, Brian Trouble. Report number PD 14018, recommendation report, application for rezoning and draft plan of condominium, Old Town Gateway Block 47. Councillor Chichak, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Oh, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gannon, that report PD 14018 regarding Old Town Gateway Estates Block 47 application for rezoning, file number 1601006-18, and an application for draft plan of condominium, file number 2000-08417, dated September 17th, 2018, be received, and that Section 34 sub 17 of the Planning Act apply and no further public meeting is required, and that application for zoning bylaw amendment 1601006-18 submitted by IBI Group and West Niagara Enterprises, Inc. be approved, and that draft plan of vacant land condominium, file 2000-08417 CDM submitted by IBI and West Niagara Enterprises be approved as per attachment 3 in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, and regulations thereunder, subject to conditions contained in attachment number 6 to PD 140-18, and that the applicant be advised that the township's draft approval of this plan of vacant land condominium will lapse 3 years from the date of draft approval, unless Township Council grants an extension of the approval period. If an extension is requested, an updated review of this will occur, and revisions to the conditions of approval may be necessary at that time. Sorry.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Chichak and seconded by Councillor Gannon. Is there any questions or comments? I see Councillor Belsman's hand and then Councillor Bell's hand.
Okay, so I want to just get on the record that our community had a desire for better walkability, and that we heard from the applicant or the developer that they tried but failed because they didn't own the lands east and west of this block. And I think that's a shame. And I understand about not owning something and wishing something to be true and not having that. But I still think it's unfortunate that we can't exercise some kind of guidance towards increasing walkability in this municipality. When something like this comes, and it's quite a key piece because it connects, it's quite a connective piece. It's quite in the puzzle of Smithville. It spans quite a distance, and it's quite a convenient distance in the sense that it connects to the end of Dufferin. Now I can't remember if that was a street or an ave anymore. I think it's a street, all the way to in the neighborhood of the Galaxy Palette. And so I think it's a great loss of an opportunity to do something that we would recognize as being a positive community feature, which is a walkability, some kind of structure that would allow people to get from the downtown core over to the plaza and back and forth and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
I think it's a missed opportunity, and I just wanted to get that expressed.
Nowhere to go east and west, so yes, it's a missed opportunity, but what's the result of that?
Yeah, so I'm wondering if there is a possibility of putting even a pathway
Along the railroad?
into the north portion there, on the event that someday we would be able to maybe work an arrangement. So, for example, the Galaxy Palette lands are sold, and they're sold to a developer that we could just simply tie into an existing pathway structure that's included in this one, and that would be able to connect people, more or less, my understanding, from the train station through a Galaxy Palette proposed development type structure, and I'm just saying hypothetically, and to this development, and that would provide a nice little backdoor walk path or a looping feature that could be connected to other features that, around the municipality. So that's, and you know, I'm just spitballing here because I was hoping that they might recognize something like that too.
Okay, Councillor Bell.
Through you, Major. So this says it's not warranted, but I got great concerns because we hear it all the time from the residents. How do I get across Highway 20? Shopping malls up that end of the road, up by industrial. Food lands up there. I live over here in Smith's Cove. If I walk up or if I come over to Legionville, how do I get across? No other way across it. Now we're looking at putting 63 units times 2, is another possibly 126 vehicles coming up that driveway every day. And they're saying, we'll give you something similar to what you got at Grimsby 5, which is push the button and pray like hell you get across the road. I just can't see letting my grandmother trying to cross Highway 20 in the middle. It don't work for me. And probably for that reason alone, I'm opposed to this whole thing. They need to put a light in there. There's no other way. I mean, how can you say you're gonna put a pedestrian crosswalk in? I think we've all seen how they work. And I'm just, we need a light there to help our residents. And if they wanna build this complex, I think they need to come good for a light in somewhere in that vicinity, preferably right there is an ideal location, because it's right in the middle of coming from the east to the west to our next light downtown, and it gives all our residents an easy way to get across the road, and it also gives them security and safety. So,
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Trouble, can you respond to that, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In the absence of Brent tonight, I can't give a fulsome reply. What I can advise is that the traffic study has been reviewed by the region and has been confirmed once again, like we talked about earlier on Oakdale and Golden Acres, the warrants are not there. Staff are aware of the process for getting a pedestrian crossing, and
with the region.
With the region, that's correct. The collection of money is part of this report. The collection of money was part of the MARS development that's underway, and we can start the pedestrian crosswalk process tomorrow effectively. In terms of a traffic light, I think that's a whole other discussion which I would have to have with Brent and the region. So I can take that back if that's direction, but I can certainly start a crosswalk discussion with the region tomorrow if that's also the direction of committee.
Okay. Councillor Bell?
for me personally, yeah, it's time we talk to the region. It's nice for the region to sit down there and say, this is what you need, West Lincoln, it don't warrant it. Well, they should come and live here and try to cross our roads. We want a traffic light, that's the bottom line. You know, we need to go to them and say, we want a light. We don't want a pedestrian crosswalk. Let's get a light put in there. And I'd like to have staff have that conversation with them.
Okay.
Let's get that light in there.
Okay, Councillor Ganan.
I'd like to support that issue of a light. I'm wondering, though, if the traffic warrant is done now and all of those houses are not there, plus the additional number that are going in, will they redo that when we have hundreds of cars dumping out? I mean, the parents and of children and the residents of the Legion Villas and the people who live along St. Catherine Street and perhaps work across the street at the plaza tell me about great lengthy periods where they're standing, waiting, trying to get across the road with the amount of traffic going through town. And I experienced that myself on Saturday, just, trying to cross back and forth. So I understand that they do a traffic warrant now, and it might not show, but trying to get across now is already difficult. So when people on Dufferin or people on Brock or people at the Legion talk about, Legion Villa, talk about how difficult it is to get across, there's no exaggeration there. It really is extremely difficult. When that light goes, when the light that's there goes, I mean, you will have 10, 12, 20 cars, and once they pass by, then, you know, you've got them coming into town, and they're still coming in at quite a speed. I know that there was a proposal for the roundabouts, and that's supposed to slow down traffic and all the rest of it. But in the meantime, it's very, very dangerous crossing our streets. And I think that we either need some kind of a commitment that, okay, put a crosswalk for now, and we'll do another traffic warrant when all these houses are there, or we have to be able to tell people something. It's too dangerous. It really is, trying to get across those roads. And we have a lot of people who temporarily have, you know, crutches, or people who are pushing strollers, or people who have little children in tow, or people walking dogs and pushing a stroller. I mean, there's just so many combinations, and you can't just jump across the road. And nobody who lives in the middle of St. Catherine Street is going to walk, you know, out of their way down to the light, cross, and then go back to get to the plaza. I mean, it's an impossibility. And while we're talking about the plaza, it's not just a grocery store and that kind of thing. Many people have to go there for their mail, and that still is equally difficult to pick up your mail. So I think there are some major concerns. I have just one other question, and that has to do with the fact that they couldn't go either direction. Don't we have a parkette at the end of Dufferin that could have provided? What is that extra bit of space back in there?
Mr. Trouble?
On the circle that was put in later. Do you know what I mean? That pie shape at the corner?
It's a road easement, is it not, Mr. Trouble?
Through you, there is a piece of land that's owned by the township, but it's not anything that the Dufferin Street people want as a road access.
No,
They might even be restrictive to having a walking access, I would predict. But there is a piece of land that's township owned, and it is going to be used for water service, I believe, to connect to a pipe on Dufferin Street to bring into the service.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I would think that if the people on Dufferin Street were approached, the people who live up there especially, if they knew that at some point in time they would have a way without going down and along the main drag and back up and around, if they knew that there was a way to get out of the other end of their survey, the circle end at the top there, and get through that piece of property and be able to hit the train station or eventually get to the new facility, the new community center, I would think that they would be receptive to that. I'm sure they don't want somebody to start driving through there. I would certainly think they would find that difficult, but a walking path is a very different scenario.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can continue to explore this avenue, but if I may, there's a couple of complications. The application that's before us tonight is for a plan of condo, so it is not public land. It's not land that the Condominium Association is going to want pedestrians from the town walking through if it's part of some linear corridor. So that alone, in my mind, is problematic. The other challenge is the lands on either side are private, with the exception of the piece we just referred to. So it's very difficult to get private property owners to agree to assume some liability to allow pedestrians to cross their lands, and hence the reason we haven't been able to find anything to date. You know, there is another thought in my mind that a linkage to Morgan Avenue might be possible, but I need to look at how the heck that would happen. Probably would take something from the school property in order to make that work. The options are difficult, and the challenge, I think, is comparable to any other municipality trying to deal with infill development. You have old development that was not contemplated for walking traffic, it was contemplated for the car, trying to blend that with today's desires to have walkability as an important feature. And, you know, it's wonderful that we're talking about it. It's just not as easy to make it happen. That's the trick. So I haven't given up hope on this end. And certainly the position of council ensures that staff won't give up hope. We'll continue to look for avenues. I'm not sure they're north at the railway end. That would be the concern I would have there. And with respect to the traffic, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'm not an expert in the traffic studies and don't profess to understand them fully, but believe that what has been done was with an anticipation of what the traffic would be in the new development. So with all of the new cars that they anticipate coming through this development, it still doesn't warrant the additional signalization that we're talking about. That's my understanding. But the report is written, simply drafts conditions that say the region still has to sign off. So we have opportunity to hammer home yet again whether or not this triggers an increased crossing of some description. As I said earlier, I know the process, and I can explain the process for a pedestrian crossing if council is interested. But at this point, I don't know what the signalization process is.
Okay. Councillor Chichak?
I understand and sympathize with everything. There is no way to cross through, and our linkages are limited. But I think the thing we need to look at is this is for a plan of condominium, and it doesn't require the kind of trail system that we're looking for. So I do have an issue with a crosswalk. We need one. But we also need those traffic circles put in at either end. We also need that industrial core traffic being rerouted outside the downtown core. So we're looking for a solution for something that doesn't have warrants at the moment without the benefit of the work that was supposed to be done by the region over the past number of years. So I think, if I'm correct, the first thing would be to get the region to move onto the 2 traffic circles. If I remember previous council and a previous councillor saying that St. Martin's School wouldn't open without those traffic circles, and I think we put a motion forward and we asked that, but we couldn't demand that from the region. But we were very concerned about traffic, about speed, about the volume of traffic going through our town, and we somehow got the traffic crosswalk near St. Martin's. If that's what we're looking for, is a solution for our traffic, and it isn't warranted by whatever, we need to look at those improvements as well as how we get that crossing. But I really don't want to fool anyone that's listening to this or is here now into the fact that we can force a traffic light at a certain point on a road we don't own.
That's right.
So my problem is, I want to work with the region. I want to muscle the region. I want to take them to the ground. That's no problem. But we have things on our books and in their capital plan that is there with the intention of taking cars out of our downtown core. So we need to work with that. We need to enforce that. And if we can get a traffic crossing without a crossing guard, because that only gives it for certain hours, but to get a permanency of a flashing light or something that allows pedestrians across, I understand what's being said tonight. And I'd work and I'd fight for that, and I know this council would agree with that. But let's not get anything on the table here that's not going to get done. We're not going to get a traffic light where we want one just because we want it. So how do we get to the region, and that's a question more through you, I guess, Mr. Mayor, to how we get to some solutions on traffic crossing or crossing of pedestrians through that section, other than calming it all around it so that there's a slower pace in that area. How do we get a crosswalk?
Mr. Treble, how do we get a crosswalk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the message that the region has given to township staff today is that if we simply make a request to the region in writing with documentation of sort of the background or the history behind the concern, and I think we can easily generate some documentation around that, ask them to identify the proper location that would work most efficiently.
Or locations.
Or locations. And if we are prepared to pay, they will install and they will maintain. So it simply takes a letter from township staff to initiate the process. The only catch is, at this particular point in time, the township only has money in the bank related to the Mars development, because they're the ones that is far enough along that they've actually paid their portion to us. It could be some time, a year or two before this particular development is paying to meet that condition. And there is one other development so far that has been asked to pay money, that being
Across
the
from
one
the
on the
Legion.
west side across from the Legion.
Right.
On the west side of Union Cemetery, they've been asked to give a contribution of, I believe, around 5,000. So with the three contributions, we will have enough money, I believe, to achieve a signal similar to the one at South Grimsby 5.
So to that point, if we've got commitment and these people are going to donate it and, or pay the fee that we've asked for and understand that that crosswalk is essential, we, the township, can either go to those developers and say, hey, can you pay it early? Or do we upfront it? It's called front ending or whatever you want to call it, and then get it back when the development goes forward. Because in fact, I'm seeing a man nod out there. In fact, that's what we need to do if we want it in there. If we can get a crosswalk, then we need to take the proper channel to get the crosswalk and get the people who said they'd support us to just give us the money or commit to giving us the money at the right time. So we've got a way to get a crosswalk. So let's follow that one before we start asking for the sky when we've got the moon and the stars right in our hand right now. And then we can push after the crosswalk for the other elements, the 2 turning circles and the other routing of industrial traffic. And then we can know whether we really want a signal light there. So I don't know where we make the motion. I know it's not here. This is a plan of condominium, but maybe later when we're doing this cleanup, we put forward a motion that says we ask staff to write to get that done, and then we approach all the developers to see if we can get them to front end at this point so we can get that traffic circle in, the crosswalk.
Which I think I heard Mr. Treble say, with the passing of this motion, we could do it tomorrow.
I think I heard that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our clerk does have some draft wording, I believe, as well.
So an amendment to this, or?
I think, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it could be done that way.
Okay, through an amendment.
That amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Let's read it.
You need it.
The Director of Planning and Building. That the Director of Planning and Building be and is hereby directed to send a letter to Niagara Region requesting the installation of a pedestrian crossover at a suitable location as determined by Niagara Region in the vicinity of Old Town Gateway Estates and Dufferin Street. I need a second for that motion.
Councillor Ganan. Sorry, guys, I didn't see who put their hand up first over there, so.
I was looking that way.
Yeah, I don't think it's on the floor. Okay, so the amendment to this is that the Director of Planning and Building be and is hereby directed to send a letter to Niagara Region requesting the installation of a pedestrian crossover at a suitable location as determined by Niagara Region in the vicinity of Old Town Gateway Estates and Dufferin Streets. Any questions or comments to the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Now the original motion as amended, again moved by Councillor Chichak, second by Councillor Ganan. And this has to do with Old Town Gateway Estate Block 47 application for rezoning. See no more comments or questions. All those in favor? Hands up high, please. That's carried. Okay. I'm on I, right? Planner 2, Garrett Borderman, Director of Planning and Building, Mr. Brian Treble. Report number PD 09218, Recommendation Report, Revised Township Street Naming Policy, Street Name List. Councillor Bosma, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Chichok that report PD 92-18 regarding revised township street naming policy dated September 17, 2018 be received, and 2, that the list of street names found in attachment 2 be added to the township street naming policy, POL-PD-1-11, replacing any existing approved list.
Councillors, review the resolution. Moved by Councillor Bosma, second by Councillor Chichuk. Is there any comments or questions? Councillor Chichuk?
Just one, and that is that this is wonderful. We have a list. It's there. Now, how often do we review it? What is the process of adding names to it? What are we going to do? Because we've got this list. And I applaud the efforts of everyone who had anything to do with finally getting this done. But how will we make it a routine thing where we're going to look at this list as time goes on?
Mr. Treble, can you answer those questions? So it is, how are we going to add to this list and those types of questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll give Garrett an opportunity to respond as well, since he works directly with the Heritage Committee. But it would be my thought that if council or committee has some direction that they wish to provide to the Heritage Committee, this seems to be sort of their project, and I would suggest that with some direction, they could easily put it on their schedule. They're scheduled to have at least 4 meetings per year, so this could easily be reviewed at whatever frequency is required.
Okay. Garrett?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, the Heritage Committee, I think, is more than happy to revise this list from time to time and add more names to it. I think this round we were just tasked to revising the list and not any of the street naming policies, so that's all we did. We just added a significant amount of lists from certain historical books and atlases, and but we would be, I guess, with the planning department, happy to look over the policy and maybe put some new policy in about revising this list from time to time.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Trombetta?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Chichak, you're not done yet?
So it would just be if we could say on an annual basis, historic, that they will look at it, because time to time could be a lifetime. So if we could just get that direction, that would be great.
I guess we might need to add this into the motion, Madam Clerk. On an annual basis, I guess, is what we're asking for. Councilor Chichak, done?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Trombetta?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. The list that's compiled by the Heritage Committee, as you said, sorry, Gary, you said it's from like atlases and all that kind of stuff, pretty much. How do people on the list get, like, or can get on the list? And I know we've discussed this in the past, like a resident that's lived in the area, that's an entrepreneur, someone that has contributed so much for so many years, that could no longer, let's say they're no longer with us, and you know what, it could be added to this list of a possibility of future council in the future, Mr. Mayor. Like,
So as I understand it, so if you felt that, say you had a relative that
I'm just saying
passed.
someone that's in the, like, that's, let's say, I don't know, like.
No, I get it. I understand what you're meaning. So if somebody was to come forward and you could do it posthumous, and you would make a recommendation to the Heritage Committee, they would then take it to the Heritage Committee. There'd be some kind of justification there, and then they would make a decision, and it would come back to committee and then go to council.
But the Heritage Committee couldn't pool like, let's say, a list of five historians from this municipality and put that on that list. Like, let's say, I don't know, there's a Griffin name, and there's many names that came to this town and settled this town, and I understand there's other street names with that, but I'm just using that as an example.
I think that's what they tried to do with that list that they've created. I think what Mr. Borman is saying is that they've comprised that list from a book of help me out here.
Atlases and stuff, but I thought that was a big generic statement, right? Like.
Yeah, through you, we took the, I think it's an 1824 atlas. It's the big black book, the Atlas of Caister, Gainsborough, and South Grimsby. And we went through and collected all the names that were on those original surveys, and then got rid of course, any duplicates, any names that are in existence. And then we also went to the Legion, and the Legion provided us with some names of some fallen war heroes that are not very recent, but some historical ones.
He gave me the answer. That's why when he said Atlas, I thought it was just a generic Atlas. I didn't know it was all Caister, Gainsborough. I didn't know that. So that's where I was asking. But
I'm sorry. Yeah, no.
It was just too. So that you answered it, Garrett. Thank you. And no more further questions.
Okay. Joe, read out the Madam Clerk, read out the amendment, and then I'll be looking for a seconder, please. Go ahead.
That the recommendation contained in report number PD 09218 be amended to add the following additional recommendation.
as follows. 3, that the Heritage Committee be and is hereby directed to revisit the list of street names on an annual basis.
Okay.
I just need a
Okay,
seconder.
I need a seconder for that amendment. Councillor Bell, please. Okay, see no more comments or questions for the amendment. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Now the original motion as amended. Any questions or comments for that? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that too is carried. Thank you. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to the administration, finance, fire items. Amendment to budget. Chief Fisher, recommendation report WLFD 1318 P25 radios. Amendment to budget. Councillor Glenn, you have this resolution, please.
I do. Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bilsma that report WLFD-13-18 regarding P25 radios amendment to budget dated September 17th, 2018 be received. And 2, that council hereby authorize and approve option A, being that the township purchase the P25 radios outright at a cost of $241,753, and that the cost be funded through a $70,753 transfer from the fire department reserve and a $171,000 transfer from the contingency reserve.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Gannon and seconded by Councillor Bylsma. Any questions or comments for the chief at this time? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to Treasury Director of Finance, Ms. Donna D. Philippus, recommendation report RFDT 2418, the purchasing card policy. Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution, please.
Moved by myself and second by Councillor Trombetta that report RFD-T-24-18 regarding purchasing cards be received. And 2, that council approve the purchasing card policy attached as Appendix A to this report. And 3, that the existing credit card policy dated March the 3rd, 2003 be repealed. And 4, that council give direction to staff to commence the process of implementing the BMO Bank of Montreal one-card purchasing card program to replace the RBC Visa card program presently in use.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Rayner and seconded by Councillor Trombetta. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Deputy Treasurer John Levin's recommendation report RFDT 2518, appointment of external auditors. Councillor Trombetta, you have that resolution, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Bosma that the report RFDT 2518 regarding the appointment of auditors be received and that MMP LLP be appointed as municipal auditor for the 4-year term commencing with the audit of the year ending December 31st, 2018, and that a bylaw be presented to council to appoint MMP LLP as municipal auditors for the 4-year term commencing with an audit of the year ending December 31st, 2018.
Thank you. Councillors, for the resolution moved by Councillor Trombetta and seconded by Councillor Bosma. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Let me see here. Amendment to budget. Treasurer Director of Finance, Ms. Donna D. Philippus. Recommendation report RFDT 2618, August 2018 budget status report amendment to budget. Councillor Bell, you have that resolution, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rayner, that report RFD-T-26-18 regarding the August 2018 budget status report amendment to budget be received for information, and the council approve a transfer from the capital reserve of $24,217 to fund the additional costs that will be incurred with the Microsoft Exchange upgrade project.
Councillors, you have heard the resolution moved by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Rayner. Is there any questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. How are we doing for time?
You're doing great. Just keep going.
N, amendment to budget, Treasurer Director of Finance, Donna D. Philippus, recommendation report RFDT 2818, asset management roadmap development, and FCM grant amendment to budget. Councillor Bosman, you have this resolution, please.
I do, move by myself and seconded by Councillor Gann. It's a long one. That report, RFDT 2818, regarding asset management roadmap development and FCM grant amendment to budget dated September 17, 2018, be received for information. And two, that Council directs staff to apply for a grant opportunity from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program for Asset Management Roadmap Development. And three, that the Township of West Lincoln commits to conducting the following activities in its proposed project submission to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program, which will advance our asset management program. Bullet, asset management maturity assessment. Bullet, asset management policy. Bullet, data disaggregation, consolidation, and refinement. Bullet, condition asset assessment program development. And bullet, asset management training sessions. And four, that the cost to complete the above project is estimated at $47,900, with $38,300 being requested through the FCM grant and $9,600 as a transfer from the capital reserve. And five, that council approve the transfer of $47,900 from the capital reserve to complete this project in the event that FCM grant funding is not obtained.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution, moved by Councillor Bosma and seconded by Councillor Gann. Is there any questions or comments for Ms. D. Philippus of the CAO? Councillor Bosma, please.
Thank you. Is it wise to have that the last recommendation that whether we get the approval or not, we go ahead with this project? I'd like to see that if we don't get the approval, that it comes back, and so that we can have a bit of a more fulsome discussion about its importance and necessity, especially if we're going to foot the whole bill.
Well, I think we would talk about right now the importance and the necessity to do it regardless. So, sure. Ms. Hendry?
Someone wants to speak to it then. Appreciate that.
I'll speak, thank you for the question. I'll speak in generalities. First of all, we have a legal requirement to be doing the asset management work. And I think that what we're trying to do to accomplish through this process that our treasurers put forward is to try to secure funding from FCM to carry it out. But the bottom line is that as an organization, we have a legal responsibility to put this into place.
Councillor?
Further question: Do we have something currently in place? Is this a new requirement of municipalities?
Yes, it is. And Treasurer Donna, can I ask you to speak more to the new requirements? And I actually do believe that Council received a report in February of this year with that information.
Ms. D. Philippus, please.
Yes, through you, Mayor Joyner, to Councillor Balsma. Attached to this report is the detailed new regulation. So compared to the asset management plan we have in place right now, Council approved an asset management plan that is a document that looks at our assets, looks at the state of the assets, how we're financing them, and gives it a grade. The difference with this new legislation is that asset management is no longer a book that stays on a bookshelf. It's an actual process that the municipality will adopt and actually use in all its budgeting, long-term financial planning, and really day-to-day activities. If you read the legislation and you look at what the future holds, we have to start looking at risk analysis. We have to start looking at service levels. So what kind of services do we want to provide? What assets do we need to provide those services? How are we going to measure that service? It's a totally new concept in municipalities. And what we're asking is PSD to help us navigate this process. It still requires a lot of staff initiative and staff work. What we're looking for from PSD is just to give us some guidance. An example would be they will start the process by doing interviews with staff, interviews with council, getting knowledge of what we know about asset management. We're going to have to look at conditions of assets and what kind of information we want to capture. And then we have to do and actually do all that work. So it's a huge process. The first deadline is, I think it's July 2019, where we have to have a policy in place. And this will help us get that policy done. So it's very different from any asset management plan council has seen and approved in the past.
Councillor?
I'm challenged that the insistence is coming down. I see from above, in the sense that our municipalities, quite in touch. I think the staff does a good job identifying our assets and their condition, and then to kind of have this imposition with this cost associated with it. Maybe there are municipalities that have been doing a very, very poor job, and then the province is responding by saying everybody has to get on the same page. I guess at this point, all I was asking in the beginning was, if this is an imposition or their insistence on doing it, I appreciate that they're offering grant to help us facilitate in that. If we don't get the grant, I was just asking that it comes back here and we could have a little bit more fulsome discussion on it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Nope. Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, we'll move on to Ms. Hendry. She's going to talk to us about employee professional accomplishments. Ms. Hendry, could you enlighten us?
Mayor Joyner. Again, every time we have a new accomplishment from one of our staff, we like to make sure that they're highlighted. And in this case, our staff member, Powell DeBose, from our Public Works and Engineering Department, has recently completed his IPWEA Professional Certificate in Asset Management Planning. And like you may want to know what IPWEA is, and that's Institute of Public Works Engineering Australasia. So it was, he did not go to Australasia, but he did attend this program, and it's a well-regarded program, and as you can see, asset management planning is becoming quite a significant trend across many public sector groups right now, and certainly this will assist us as well, having more staff that are more knowledgeable about the area. So we congratulate Pablo in his achievement.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that update. While you still have the mic on, can you please give us an update on the MERS project, please, Multi-Use Recreation Site Community Center?
Thank you again, Mayor Joyner. So unfortunately, Brent Julian is quite ill today and has asked me to pass on the Public Works verbal update with respect to the design and build recreational site and library. So I'm using his report. So as I say, members of council, this is my last report on our new recreation library site. I'm pleased to inform you that the project is making satisfactory progress. So again, I'm speaking on behalf of Brent. As members of council are aware by now, you may say we made a big splash when we opened our outdoor play features on Friday evening of August 31st. At the 6 p.m. opening, we had approximately 80 people show up to use our new skateboard park, playground, and splash pad. The hot, wet weekend we experienced really helped the public enjoy our newest park. And there are approximately 30 people using the skateboard park, and including people from surrounding areas, with the rest focused on the playground and the splash pad. The park was used extensively through the long weekend and beyond, and it was really heartwarming to see everyone enjoying the park. The library is proceeding with furniture installments. The library shelves are currently being installed. The circulation desk is expected to be completed and installed this week. And one of the 3 furniture suppliers has experienced some delays, and it is expected to deliver and set up the various chairs and tables needed to the site by the first week of October. And this is due to an equipment breakdown by that company's supplier, which has affected the delivery schedules for all of their clients. In the meantime, the ball crews are working to finalize the life safety systems and receive occupancy, which is estimated for September 26th. And this is in the library area. And once occupancy is received, we will start the move process from the Smithville Library with the moving date of September 27th. The Smithville Library will start the process of packing between September 20th and 26th. And we are hoping to have this process completed in time for the Thanksgiving weekend opening. And we will keep council members posted as we work towards that date. We're also progressing with the remainder of the building. The colored glass panels on the front entrance and east wall of the Wellness Gymnasium have been installed, and this gives the building an enhanced appearance. Tile flooring is being installed both in the library and in the hallway between the Wellness Center and the library. The concrete aprons have been poured around the exterior of the ice slab, and through the month of September, work will continue on the arena pad and the placement of sub-slab sand cushioning, then heat line plumbing, followed by refrigeration piping. And the arena concrete pad pour is currently scheduled to commence on October 16th. The elevator shaft walls have mostly been constructed, as well as the interior walls in the library, in the lobby area. The interesting feature here is that the concrete blocks used in this area is the use of a honed architectural type block, which has the look of polished concrete, and that will really accent the foyer area. The gazebo and the pergola shades structures have been installed near the outdoor play features, along with the joining concrete sidewalks. And finally, the capital campaign is continuing to show progress. The seat sale by the Kiwanis is moving satisfactorily, and as of last week, there were approximately 111 seats and 4 benches sold, and we are currently approximately $1.2 million in pledges. So with that, it gives me great pleasure to provide Brent's update on the largest capital project that the township has encountered.
So again, we're at 1 point what for funding?
1.2.
1.2? Okay. And is that, and that's with yesterday's announcement too as well? Or Friday's announcement?
I actually think that might be even more, so I'll have to clarify that.
Okay, okay. Okay. To go past 11? Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Trombetta that this meeting does now deliberate beyond the hour of 11 p.m.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, so I'm looking for comments or questions to Ms. Henry's report. I see Councillor Chichuk, then Councillor Balsma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to our CAO. I've always, from the start of this project, talked about the financing of it, and I felt that Mr. Julian was very careful and very clear to make us aware of any spending that was going outside of the budget. And I know that there's been many decisions made to control the cost and to ensure that we got good finishes, much like you were talking tonight. But the question I asked tonight, and I know that numerous people have asked it, and that is, I'm not worried when it opens, because I know we've had weather issues and there's been delays because of different manufacturers, et cetera. So there's been some sliding perhaps, but it will open. And I'm not going to ask what time is the right time, but is this project within the budget that was scoped at the initial start of this whole project?
Ms. Hendry, very good question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mayor Joyner, to Councillor Chichuk. We've been going through pretty detailed reviews of the budget documents right now, and that's particularly as we're moving into a major transition as Mr. Julian leaves the organization. So he's briefing me quite frequently, and I can report that we are certainly on track budget-wise.
The commitment that we made, Mr. Mayor, through you, that Mr. Julian agreed to and that we asked for was that if there was going to be anything that took us outside of the budget and the reserves that we had or contingencies, was that we weren't looking for, as the chair of that committee at that time, we weren't looking for every $5.25 that happened. We were looking that if we were going to go over budget, if we were going to go past the contingencies, that we would have a report back to this council so it would not be a surprise. Is that still the intention of what will happen should we run up against something that requires us to spend beyond the monies we had allocated for this?
Ms. Hendry.
Again, through you, Mayor Joyner, to Councillor Chichok. Yes, that would be the expected policy. And having gone through sort of the report on this, there's been a very regular update of council on the progress that has been made. And we are, again, keeping, we certainly understand, and having joined the organization, the importance of making sure that this is on time and on budget, and we are keeping very close watch on that. And should there be something that would put us into that position, we would definitely make sure council was aware.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Henry. Those are the answers, and that is the questions that I think are very important for this community to hear the answer from you at this time.
Thank you. Councilor Bosma?
Yeah, and that was, I'm glad that that was already addressed. So I had a small concern, and so I think the second day it was so hot, I even took my kids to the splash pad, and they enjoyed it already. But it didn't take long, and there was a comment made by one of the constituents that I came across that